Hey guys, Tarke here, and today we are joined by Raiz, Octavian, and Nugi, and it is our first Baeclast of 2019. And thanks to Nugi's amazing suggestions, we're going to talk about everything today. So, Nugi, what have you been up to?
I have been playing a lot of PoE. I have been playing an Uber Elder speedrun on SSF Hardcore. And it's going pretty well so far, I would say. I mean, I thought I'm pretty slow at this. I've gotten pretty slow at this in my mind, so start to practice. So I just said, hey, why not? Went for it. I'm at almost Shaper, so we're almost there.
What's the hardest bit about it, do you think?
Not dying.
Well put.
I mean, seriously, when you're running like, okay, so you have like a limited amount of resources. You have to go through your red maps, right? Because you need to push like the 15, 16. You have to do gardens, everything on a scuffed budget, and you have to do it like as fast as possible. So everything, like, you can't just reroll maps. So you're running like at least up to the through the red maps, not the actual gardens, but you're running them with like 1-2 damage mods on like a 6k total life pool Inquisitor with just a Jade potion as like your defensive potion. So you're just trying to dodge everything, right? And so it's really hard just surviving. But Stormbrand is pretty good for just like standing around corners and letting it do the work on betrayals. That plus a decoy, and you kind of like just cheese everything.
Yeah, I was actually wanting to ask if you had been like doing the trick where you lock betrayal to research and so you don't have to engage with that, or are you?
No, I do it all the time.
All right, cool.
Yeah, I did a pure soft breachstone as well yesterday. Killed Soft as well. Basically, Soft spent 80% of the time hitting decoy, and my Stormbrand was just hitting him. So that was great. It's not broken at all.
I think Stormbrand has to be like one of the best playstyles they've ever added to PoE. It's just so good.
It's really powerful. Maybe a little bit too powerful. I think the line of sight thing, like running around corners, might be a bit too much.
Do you think that's
For
the kind of
something
thing
that's
they would
hitting all the
balance
time.
around though? Because that's very niche. Like most people playing the skill probably aren't doing that.
I don't know. I don't know. It's a really fun play style, but it also has times where it's just ridiculously like broken almost in terms of mechanics. So it's hard to say.
It's like a damage over time build that actually does damage and also stuns things and also freezes them and stuff. So
Yeah.
Well,
I mean, I'll give you an example here of how I play it. So I spawn a if it's a small fortification, I lightning spire trap 3 times on the door, place my my Stormbrands on the door as well, right? And then a couple extra. Place a decoy just before it dies, run around to the other side, and I just stand there. Because then they will try and chase me through the wall, so they just run into the wall with Stormbrands, and they actually never do anything. And they just die. I mean,
it gets shit done for sure.
yeah.
I mean, that's the thing too, that brands are like, everybody's struggling with Syndicate, and brands are like the ultimate anti-Syndicate thing.
Yeah,
Because the more there
exactly.
are, the easier it gets.
Can I just say though, this entire fucking league, I haven't struggled once with Syndicate. And I don't know if it's because I've only been playing damage over time builds predominantly, but I think they're really easy. And after the last nerf, fortifications are a complete joke. Like, complete joke.
I don't know. It's hard to tell.
I shit my pants all the time because, I mean, one misstep and you die, at least on hardcore.
Yeah.
It's like, there's always this, like, you mess it up once, you get hit by something you shouldn't, and you die.
I think I've died... So my current character, I'm like halfway to 95. I think I've died once to Syndicate, and that was it that fled Chaos straight one shot, and like 6k to nothing, just like dead zone. And that was... I just shouldn't have gone hit, but I don't know.
I feel like it's very random, honestly. Like, I've died 3 times this league. 1 time to City Square boss when it was bugged. Then the second time to a fortification, but not even like the Syndicate at like 99. So I didn't really get like hit hard by the Syndicate itself at all. And then the last time was an Uber Elder. So I haven't even, despite playing quite a bit, I haven't died to Syndicate. But then I see a lot of other people die, and I feel like it's not a matter of them not being like strong. I think I've just been really lucky. Like, I feel like I should have died so many times. So
I do
it's so
think
hard to
that
tell how much damage they really do and like how scary they are. If you're like constantly panicked around them, then yeah. But eventually I have to get clapped, like, for sure.
I think that in the last few patches, though, they did a good job of reducing the problematic visual effects with some of the worst. Like Haku is really easy to see. That Fled is much easier to see now. Like Yanis as well has much more of a delay in the explosion. So it's definitely something that they're addressing. And I don't mind really having something in like, you know, a super rippy T15 map that's rolled corrupted 8 mods or something. Like I want to be potentially one shot in that map. I just want to be able to see that it's going to happen. So I think that going in that direction with the betrayal, where like, you know, that Fled might occasionally 6k to zero you, is fine so long as you can see that that's going to happen and have the chance to avoid it.
And that was in like a tier 16, I think, with extra damage mods. So it wasn't like
Yeah.
I was doing a
Like
white
that
map.
should be able to kill
Exactly.
you,
Yeah.
unless
Well,
you
I don't
feel
know.
ridiculously tanky.
I've seen some crazy Rin stuff still happening now with people getting
Rin is
one shot and
weird.
really bizarre things.
Yeah. I've been leveling a Scourgeow build again because I really enjoyed it last league, so I wanted to come back to it. And I'm pushing for 100, and one of the earlier deaths I had at like level 98 or something was I heard Rin spawn, but I blink arrowed as the like intervention happened, so it was happening off screen, and then I just died. There wasn't an animation. I don't know if it was like bugged because I had blinked away from her as it happened, or if I just didn't see it. But her rain of arrows just killed me from like almost 8k life with, you know, Hail Negator on the build as well, which is a helmet that I think people are massively underestimating
Really
right now.
nice heal.
That's good help.
Yeah. So like effectively against one shots, like almost 9k life and just gone.
I think that was a confirmed bug because that they made a change in the last patch about Rin by making it do like some cold damage, and it no longer does it off screen. I think it was something to do with like the animation would go invisible, and then it would just hit you with everything. So yeah.
Was it a bug? I mean, I know they lowered the damage a little bit and they converted some of it to cold so you can like resist it.
Yeah.
And they lowered the
That's,
range as well.
Yeah,
yes.
they
Does
changed
she
the
have
range
like
and stuff.
does she have like fire shot or something?
With an
Possibly.
item,
There might be an
Yeah,
item
that would make
gives them
sense,
far
yeah.
shot.
Oh,
She has
okay.
she has a far shot item for sure.
Yeah, I mean that combined, you know, like when she off-screens you then as well. I mean, all of a sudden you're taking like double damage.
The issue for me wasn't the massive damage I was taking because it was a T16 with like minus max and shit, but rather the fact that because I blink out at the wrong time, I literally had no chance to see anything.
Yeah.
Which, you know, could just be down to bad timing and maybe there's no way to fix that, or it could be a bug. I'm not sure. I looked over the clip. It was impossible to tell. There's just too much going on.
One thing, I know that you're playing an attack-based build, so you have a shit ton more attack speed, whereas with me and Corsica, it's like I've got some passive attack speed. I'm finding Flame Dash faster casting way better than Blink Arrow. Because with Blink Arrow, you have that slight delay at the start, and I've died so many times in that slight, like...
I've hugely invested into Blink Arrow in my build. I have a level 4 enhance and 20/20 faster attacks linked to Blink Arrow, and quality increases arrow speed, so it's basically an instant teleportation ability. But yeah, Flame Dash on a bow build is actually pretty damn legit.
Flame Dash in general is really legit.
Yeah, Flame Dash is nice, man.
Yeah, no, but I'm just saying in the case of being on a bow build as well, like where you might not have as much cast speed, it's still pretty. You don't need that much cast speed to make it good.
I like what they did with a lot of the movement skills now with what's it called? Or at least with Flame Dash with the cooldown reduction.
I really wish movement speed, like movement skills, were like Flame Dash is now, but like from the very beginning. Or well, not from the very beginning, but for a long time. I really wish they did that. But like whenever they try to even give people an idea that it's gonna be charges and recovery and like scaling, people were just like, no. we want to clear strands in 20 seconds. So they could never really do it. So they did it anyway, but like indirectly by buffing everything else and like very slowly nerfing these more and more and more.
Changing the attack speed
And now we're at a point where people don't really like, unless you're trying to keep a fortify, you're not really looking to use any of that. Just slap on an adrenaline flask and you're chilling.
Yeah.
Mm.
It's a lot better movement skills. I think they finally started to nail it. Right, it took them a long time, right? Because I think most of us probably at the time where we all were playing we were all like pretty much just saying there's nothing else to do but shield charge, right? I don't remember. Like it was probably like 5-6 leagues ago. I was just like it's just gotten too good, and then everyone had these ideas. Pretty much the ideas that we had back then are pretty much how it ended up being now, I think.
And the problem with movement skills was so endemic for so long that it was just shutting out whole ways of potentially playing the game.
Yeah.
Like staff builds in particular have benefited a ton from Flame Dash and Phase Run being much more accessible and actually usable.
Mhm.
Like, you know, something like what's that new minion staff? Soul Rest never would have been as popular as it was if it had been introduced in a more shield charge oriented meta.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
Well, actually, back when shield charge was the shit, SRS was actually a decent ability. So maybe.
Wasn't Bow on SRS pretty popular for a little while, or am I misremembering?
Yeah, but that was when CI was like SRS was a big thing. But like when shield charge was most popular, that's when a lot of SRSers started to even get to a point where it's like, yeah, we can do more damage with a staff, but because you can have shield charge with like a scourge claw, might as well just do that because shield charge is just so crazy. It makes up for the loss of damage.
And
so
the Lyco giving them accuracy with whatever it's called, Necromantic Aegis as well.
That meta came off later.
Yeah, that was like way.
Yeah.
That was like, well, I don't know if that was even a meta. That was such a weird time where like some weird POB number came out and people were like, oh, SRS has no accuracy. And then nobody knew anything. There were no actual numbers. And then somebody made a Reddit thread and nobody had any idea. And now we have like
build without solid numbers in this game.
I don't know.
Never.
Then we got like now we have like 10,000 accuracy, and guess what? SRS is still crap. It's like, dude, I don't know. This was some weird. I don't even know if it was a meta, if it was just pure misinformation. Like the thing about summoner players in general is that they just want new things, no matter what. So then there's gonna be a new mob in the game, and people are gonna be like, "Oh yeah, this new mob, that's the new Spectre. It's totally better than Solar Guards." And then you play with it, and it's just like, this is not good. Like these incursion mobs, for instance, it's like they're okay, but and then somebody would go, well, yeah, they need to be level 84, and then they scale a lot better, and that's when they get good. And then you try them, and it's like, well, it's still pretty comparable or worse. Like I don't know. Summoners just really try, but yeah,
it might as. We should probably get back on topic to the current league soon, but that might be as much a product of you know, the summoner players themselves as an environment where you just don't have a lot of information. And so you're always fishing for, you know, something new. It's sort of a self-feeding cycle because that sort of environment also draws the kind of player who wants to explore and find new cool small niches. Like talking of new niches in summoning, our Kali's Fang, I'm very happy with how that item turned out. It's actually pretty damn cool now.
Yeah, it's a cool item, especially if you play around with occultists and stuff, for sure. Some of them.
I think I saw, who was it? It was either Kitten or it was Azara who was playing with the skill. Did the what's the spider boss in Act 8? And it was just hilarious. Yeah, I know. She killed it in like 2 seconds. And she was just dead laughing. So I mean, it's apparently pretty popular now, the Fang.
It has been absolutely dive bombing in price though, because what a lot of people were doing with it was because the spiders are untargetable and they don't have health bars, so the enemies ignore them. You could use phase run before the bug fix to become completely untargetable yourself, and then literally stand there and your spiders would just kill the boss and the boss would do nothing because there was nothing for them to target.
Well, the cool thing is also that they have a actual hitbox and there's 20 of them, so they can just like surround the boss and then the boss just can't move at all. So you can't attack them, you can't kill them, you can't move. It's like the perfect build. I don't know, pretty cool.
We seem to have lost Tarke though.
Yeah, apparently since Tarke's gone, he's told us to get into what I've been doing. What have I been doing? Oh yeah, I've been playing like Caustic Arrow. I'm playing a Vortex dude. I died to Uber Elder. Never done the fight. I was like, I got a boss killer, farm shaper a whole lot, got pretty bad RNG, so I'm like, we're gonna go Uber Elder, see how it goes. I died instantly. Wasn't a good strategy.
Not instantly.
Well, it did a lot more damage than
You're
I
doing all
thought.
right. Yeah.
I should have probably looked at a video or something like that. That would have worked out. Also, I checked out Tectonic Slam. That shit's pretty cool. I
Mhm.
tried it on a Scion. I think it has a lot of potential. And currently, I'm also looking into doing some Ice Nova Cast and Crit Frostbolt stuff, also with a Scion. There's just so much to do this league. It's pretty ridiculous. I
So
can
you're
never
saying that
run out
Scion's
of builds.
pretty good at the moment? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, sounds pretty good. If you've got the money, Scion's pretty good for just about everything. I mean, the Slayer Leech is just so ridiculous, and with the focus and everything, you've just got so much versatility. You can get like Leech if you've, I think it's when you focused recently or when
Yeah,
you are
10%
focused.
and like the Vol Pact and everything on
Yeah,
that.
and
But
Volpact, like for a caster, and you've got Slayer Leech on top of that. That should last for like 10 straight seconds, so you don't even worry about the cooldown. It's pretty insane. Focus in general. I haven't really messed around with focus itself yet, but every build that I make, I'm like, oh, okay, I really gotta incorporate focus into this. Just haven't gotten around to it yet.
I think on the note of just like strong mechanics like Slayer Leech, I think people are sleeping a bit on how strong mana is right now. With the double mana rolls on rings and MOM, it's actually crazy.
Yeah. I've seen some like 120 life with like 140 flat mana rings and shit like that. It's just like, what?
Yeah.
How is this like a real thing?
Yeah.
It's absolutely ridiculous. And then you've got like mana gained when you get hit also on top of that.
you can actually craft really dirty mind over matter multi-mod rings. I just, with Delve, they drop like the multi-mod jewelry. I just randomly annulled a 2-stone ring and crafted life and mana hybrid roll, minus mana cost of skills, flat mana, damage taken as mana, and then like a bunch of resists, and you can put an aspect skill on it, and it's like, it's pretty good. That's pretty good. 2x, item right there, and 1 annul. Like, yeah.
And you can even trade for the aspect skill now because they put that in the game.
Yeah.
Yay!
Oh yeah, I haven't messed around with that yet.
Thank
Is like the market really crazy or?
It seems to have settled. At least I haven't looked at the hardcore market. Just softcore market seems to have settled.
Wait, are you able to buy anything? I thought
Bestiary orbs are back in the game. Yeah.
No. I thought the whole trade API was like bonked.
I've just been looking at prices, like searching them up. I actually haven't whisked. Oh, you mean like listings? Yeah, no, listings are sticking around way longer than they should. That happens like every other week, though. It's not.
Yeah, but we don't have that. We don't have that on hardcore. Like
I haven't had that in my private league either.
a little bit.
You need to have people to trade with, don't you?
Yeah.
Fuck you,
pretty
bitch.
much.
I'll have you know. I have a very active, 10 people in my private league.
I think he was talking about me, Tarke.
It was kind of a catch-all.
Well, to be fair, I probably have more active traders than hardcore trade league at this point, so.
Honestly, I wouldn't be surprised. It's I got like 2 people on Ignore that are like big traders on hardcore. It feels like I can't trade with anybody, so it's pretty bad.
Though about like Bestiary trading and stuff, it's not nearly as complex as it was back in Bestiary League, and that's kind of something you can say about every aspect of Bestiary right now, but the trading in particular. Like, I don't know if you wanted to wait until later in the episode.
Just go for it. We're on it.
Okay.
YOLO.
Basically, my main gripe with the implementation of Bestiary is not that it's like a bad mechanic now in what they pared it down to. I think it's actually a good addition to the game. It's just like basically mostly harmless and not very interesting is how I would describe it. Like every time you find a beast, since red beasts are the only thing that matters for actually obtaining a recipe, and since red beasts can't be targeted, that means Bestiary is just a system by which you are fed various different random unique drops or other cool crafting recipe drops, and that's it. Like there's no targeting of I'm going to run ley lines to try and catch this beast in order to, craft this thing or sell it. And there's no like digging into the system. We lost Nugi. Oh no, he's gone.
We're fine.
There's no digging into the system to find like some strange combination by which you could, maybe work the market. I don't know. It's a lot less engaging and a lot less interesting. But I feel like maybe there's an argument to be made that it had to be pared down to this to be able to fit into the game.
I don't even know how to search for it. How do you look for it? Look, he's dead.
I wanted to mute, and then everything just closed down. What the fuck?
Let me just
How do you
mute
look
really
for
quick
what,
by
right?
turning off my PC. Okay, continue.
Yeah.
What were you looking for, Raiz?
How do you even search for the orbs? Because before it was always like the specific name of the thing, but I don't know if
Now it's just like previously how Red Beast. So like back in Bestiary League, for anybody who didn't play, there were Red Beasts like we have them now, which can be like a Pharric ape, and that's a Red Beast. And then the affixes on the beast don't matter. But you could also catch a yellow beast that had Pharric presence and was an ape, and that was a different thing. And that's why you needed to search specifically for what you wanted. It's not the case anymore. And in cutting that out, they certainly got rid of a lot of the clunk, and it made it a much more approachable mechanic, which makes a lot of sense. It needs to be approachable to be able to be thrown into the core game. I'm not calling for Bestiary as it was in Bestiary League to be thrown into the game. That was a horrible system. But what you lose there is the ability to target farm for certain recipes or beasts, because red beasts are not tied to the map you find them in outside of a few very specific things. No, not that I've found. Like you can find basically any red beast in any map outside of the portal beast requiring a certain eye level. Like you can't find
only eye level, right?
Yeah, you can't find a Ferrule beast outside, or a Ferrule portal beast outside of T13 plus maps, for example. But other than that, red beasts can be found in any tile set on the Atlas.
Basically, we lost the only interesting part of the league mechanic.
Well, that's not strictly true, because there's still some cool crafting things you can do. Like,
well, yeah, but the whole thing was like you could build strategies around crafting, whereas now it's just you might get something cool.
The beasts may as well just be item drops, is what I'm saying. Like they're not a farmable, deterministic sort of thing. It's just random unique drops. They're not quite unique. Some of them are, because they just give you a random unique. Some of them give you access to a certain crafting recipe. But that's basically what they are in function.
Octavian, I would just like you to address something that was quickly said in chat, because I know that this is going to make his head blow up. Bestiary was cancer, now it's not. Slow and steady improvements. Can you please tell him why he's wrong?
Well, he's not in some ways. Like, Bestiary in its initial iteration was not a good league. That's not what I'm trying. But it had good elements, and in paring it down to be thrown into the core game in a simplified manner, we lost the good elements along with getting rid of the bad elements. And now, while harmless, and I think honestly decent for the game and not a bad mechanic, it's not terribly interesting.
Yeah.
Like, it's bland. It's okay. It's got really good voice acting from Einhar. It's got great flavor. But if you actually dig down into the mechanics of it, it's not interesting. There's not really much you can do with Bestiary other than buy Bestiary Scarabs, run T13 plus maps, and pray you get the right red beasts.
Yeah.
That's it. That's not cool. It's also not
it's like a money
terrible.
thing.
I don't hate it, but it's okay. At best, that's it.
The reason why I asked, and I don't think you actually answered, like, how do you look for the beasts themselves on the market? Like, if somebody puts it in an orb and puts it on the thing, do you need just the name of the beast, or?
So if you go to your recipe book and you look at the red beast required for a recipe, that's the only required beast for a recipe. The other slots can be filled by like rare beasts in your menagerie.
Sure.
When you look at that recipe, it'll tell you the name of the thing. Like, it'll say Pharric Ape, or it'll say...
And then you just look for that?
Then, you just go to PoE Trade or Path of Exile Trade, and you type in Pharric Ape.
See, that's what I was thinking, but that's not what I was hoping for, because you want to buy the beast that you don't have, and if you don't have it, you don't have the recipe, then how do you look for it?
You'd have to find some sort of third-party resource online that has a list of all the Bestiary recipes, I suppose.
Fucking Bestiary. Okay, yeah. Okay. Yeah, see, I agree with everything being said about Bestiary. It's like, even when it got released, it was like a diamond covered in shit. basically, to me, where there were all these cool elements, but there was just so much shit to get through that really no reasonable person would put in enough effort to get to the good parts. But now it's like, it feels like they just wanted to get rid of that entirely and just not make it cool, but make it so that people every now and then find a beast that they don't recognize possibly, or just, they're just mapping and then they find a beast and they're like, oh, this thing is 2 exalted orbs, for instance. Just like an extra little drop here and there in between. Doesn't make it interesting, but money's pretty cool. People like getting currency in PoE.
Yeah, it's harmless, but like
Harmless, yeah.
not really a lot of depth.
Yeah, exactly.
If they wanted to bring back some of the depth, I think something they could do without making it too overbearing and confusing is keep the concept where red beast is all you need to do recipe, but have the red beasts be associated with certain tile sets or certain areas in the atlas so they are target farmable. And not necessarily only associated with those, but just have a higher spawn rate in those maps.
You know what? I was actually just thinking that, but taking it a little further, you could do that for like mining tile sets as well, right? For delving. I think that's equally annoying. The fact that like it's so random, like getting sulfide, beyond getting lucky and only using Chimera.
My biggest complaint is still the thing.
I mean, but the thing, like, why are we getting a beast on a tile set but not a mine? I mean, isn't it the same thing essentially?
It makes sense.
No, but I like the idea. It's just like you can broaden the idea to encompass like more mechanics, so you can engage with the atlas even more, right? You can like unlock desert springs, and now you have a higher like chance to find the scorpion dudes.
Yeah, but isn't that like eventually we're gonna get to a point where people are gonna be forced into certain tile sets, not because they like running them, but because they need to engage with the mechanic because it's like the best thing to do at the time. That sounds like a developer's nightmare, because PoE just grows so fast. Put a mine here, put a hole there, and then everybody's running cells, right? Because it's like the most profitable thing.
It's more like a class of tile sets. It's not like it has to be like this. Like you will have like a specific, like you have like 25% of all your maps are going to be that tile set, that tile set, that tile set, right? It's not that complex. Like, okay, but everyone's going to end up running Shaper as well, right? Because it's the only one. So
I think with that, it depends exactly on how it's implemented. So if it was like, for example, we split the atlas into like 4 quadrants, and then there's like an extra 25% chance that if you're in the mine zones, you're more likely to get Nico. That way you can still get the other things. If someone doesn't know about this mechanic at all, they're still encountering everything, but they can slightly target farm into what they want to go into.
I mean, GGG isn't afraid with some of their other mechanics of implementing deterministic farming based on tile set or even like specific maps. That's what div cards are. That's what like certain atlas bases are. Different quadrants of the atlas drop opals or steals or what have you. It's even what like, it's not really a in-game currency advantage that you get from it, but it's what the hideouts are that you can farm in maps. Like if you want to get the brutal hideout, you have to run 150 towers or however many.
I just feel like they would be really scared of getting back into the only shaped maps are the thing to run. I feel like they've been fighting against that for such a long time by implementing all these different, Shaper, Uber, objectives, getting rid of sextants. Like everything's pretty much leading to having like a more balanced system where everybody's running more tower sets to keep people more interested. So a system like this kind of promotes getting back into that shaped scenario, and feel like they would be scared of that, even if it's like a slight change. You know how the community is, where it's just like
all or
you
nothing
buff by 8%, and it's just like the best thing ever or the worst thing ever.
See, I agree with you on that 100%, but I just think it's a failing of the Atlas. Like, I've never liked the Atlas as a system, and every time they add to Atlas, they break it. Every time they add to it, they break it. And, like, Atlas is, like, it's the worst. Can you say, like, oh, it's a developer's nightmare? Anything they add to Atlas is a developer's nightmare. It's such an overly convoluted system with so many, like, keep adding more shit into it. Anything they add makes it super confusing. So, I don't think you can realistically be like, oh, that's a cool idea, which makes sense from a lore flavor point of view, is, like, already established, currently works in the game, but we can't do it because it'd be hard to balance. Because anything you add to Atlas is fucking hard to balance.
This is a hell of a question, then, but, like, what would you put in its place?
Yeah.
I don't want to go back to pre-Atlas, that's for sure. When maps were just.
I don't want to go
you
back to
drop any of
Diablo
them.
3.
Okay, so
That's
this
what I
would
don't
be the thing. I think the Atlas currently is the best it's ever been, but it came
I'd agree.
out what, like 2 years ago, and
Mhm.
it's taken them 2 years to get it to a point where I'm like, okay, I finally like Atlas, right? It's people talk about it as if it was this like perfect thing from the beginning, and it's like, no, it's very harsh. And if you talk to Carve, right? Every time a patch comes out, Carve will list the 50 things that got broken with that patch. It is incredibly hard to work with, and while it's very cool, anything they add to Atlas, anything they add to mapping, from a developer point of view, is a nightmare. So don't pretend that it's not that, because it is like one of the trickiest things to balance, because they've got to worry about Elder, they've got to worry about Shaper, there's the Sextant stuff, oh, someone's shaped it now, because you've shaped it, this has stopped working, oh, this is only spawning here, this isn't, like, it's fucked. It's yeah.
I could not disagree more.
I'm kind of feeling the same here. Because without having all these intricate mechanics, how can it be PoE?
Yeah, exactly.
No, but that's my point exactly. But what I'm saying is we want more intricate mechanics, and Raiz is saying, oh, we can't add more intricate stuff because it'd be hard to balance. But that's the point. The point is it's hard. It's fucked. So I think you just...
No, it would be an ongoing process. I think it could be released in a state that would be good, but every time you add something to PoE, it's got such a massive impact on like everything around it.
Yeah, but then exactly. So
thing.
do you mean we should just never add anything because it's hard to balance?
No. I mean, specific. This is like hyper specific when it comes to the shaped maps. That's like literally the only thing that I'm talking about. That I think GGG wants to stay away from the concept of people just running, 3 tile sets or 1 tile set or something like that. Like they gave the like super specific thing, which is the Elder Orb, where you can do whatever the hell you want if you're the type of player that just wants to run a single map. But then everybody else either runs 5 tile sets or they run all tile sets. And having those 3 options being like in line with each other, I think that's like really good. So then adding an extra factor on top of that doesn't boil down to experience gain, that's the tricky part, because it's like MFing, right? Like it's not like Burial Chambers was the best map ever. People ran it because they wanted money. So I just feel like adding something like that might force people into shaping the maps that they wouldn't necessarily run
Solution.
otherwise.
The only time the affinity starts is red maps and above.
I like potentially giving an incentive for high tier red maps. I think they've actually done a decent job though. People were really frightened going into this league of the natural T15s that they introduced, like with the Atlas Splash that they leaked before the league started. And yet now we have people who are, farming natural tower maps, which is one of like a natural T15 is like got some of the biggest drawbacks to try and self-sustain. Partially because they threw a tiny little piece of a headhunter in there. But even like Desert Spring is a pretty good map. If you guys haven't done too many Desert Springs, I suggest doing them, because the lead up to the boss, those scorpions drop tons of currency in maps. And Summit's okay. Lava Lake, which was one of the better natural T15s before, is now probably the worst one in my mind.
Huh.
I actually really like Summit. Summit's a cool map.
Summit's the goats aren't as good as the scorpions.
No, yeah, it's true. I think I just prefer it as a tile set. But like, just to backtrack a little bit, I think so my biggest complaint with Atlas is the whole point of Atlas is like let players do what they want. And it's like you let the players do what they want, and I always feel as if it's like the illusion of choice, or it's you have the choice. I want Atlas pages. If we had Atlas pages, I think I would be fine with Atlas. And that's the idea of having multiple Atlases for different setups. But I don't like the current setup where it's, oh, you can do whatever you want to do. You just have to like throw a shit ton currency at it, and then you can kind of do something cool for a bit. And then if you want to super specialize in something else, you have to have this massive, like, obscene investment into it. And I don't know. I either want like Atlas pages, or I'm running these layouts because I'm trying to get more master spawns, or I want more reason to run a layout. I think inadvertently the hideout change was really nice, because I was like, I wanted to unlock all the hideouts, so I'm gonna shape around unlocking hideouts. That was cool. I want more reasons to pick a map rather than I just like the map. Do you know what I mean?
Wouldn't that be that Bestiary suggestion that we talked about earlier?
Exactly, which
Where,
is why
like,
I think something like that would be perfect.
So we're arguing in favor of it then.
Yeah.
I do kind of like Nugi's idea though of locking some of them into higher tier maps, but then the downside of that is that it introduces a new mechanic to an existent system in the game. That, like, the system gets introduced Act 2 in the Western Forest or something like that, Bestiary, and then the player isn't fully introduced to all of the mechanics of the system until they're in tier 11 maps. Like, that is a big gap of time to still be expected to be learning a system.
It's very easy to explain this to the player, though. Just have like a little note on the map, right? You hover over it, affinity for something.
Mm-hmm.
It's like really easy to explain if you just write what it does. I mean, that's like the problem with PoE. A lot of the time, information is not given. But on like very important stuff where information needs to be given, they can just give it, and it's like, you're done.
But I also, in defense of GCG, I feel like it's very difficult to pick those moments because it's very hard for them to judge when the player is overwhelmed with information, when he isn't. And like, because the Atlas is kind of like 4-staged right now, I would say, unless you're getting into like the really, really end game stuff like Guardians and whatnot, it's like white, yellow, red shaped is how I would classify it. Like, that's not a lot of tiers in between as you're like going through the entire process. So any piece of information is pretty hard. Like, even just opening the Atlas for the first time and reading over the stuff in the middle with the sextants and what you need to do and what a bonus does and all this stuff, like, that's a, you know, you go from running like a tile set a minute every minute or two when you're leveling up into the system where there's all this information thrown at you.
Couldn't you just say the exact same thing about the passive skill tree, or then Uberlab, or any ascendancy?
All of this is tied into it. Absolutely, yeah. That all while you're getting overwhelmed by the Atlas, you've also got all this other shit being thrown at you at the same time, and all the Atlas mechanics and the objectives and the masters. Like, it's a lot, man. And you find trials, and what is this? Oh, that's another lab that I have to do. Like,
with every mechanic in Path of Exile, there's a careful balancing act of depth and complexity versus trying not to overwhelm the player. And like, where we started with this discussion was talking about the implementation of Bestiary. And I, perhaps because I'm someone who's played the game as much as I have, will often err on the side of wanting more depth, maybe at the cost of making it less approachable. But I do personally think, even taking that bias into account, that Bestiary has been implemented in a way that's sort of neutered it and turned it into a system that is a lot less interesting than it could have been. And really, while I'm not like enraged about this or anything, I would love to see them revisit it at some point and maybe add back some of that complexity while keeping the simplifications that brought it to a point where it could be implemented in the core game in the first place.
See, but I think that's only going to get worse and worse as time continues, because as players get faster and builds get stronger and everything progresses and everybody gets to whatever their desired goal is faster, this information starts to pile up. You know, if you take 1 minute to clear a map, there's not a lot of room to think about what you're doing or what you want to do and whatnot. But if you take 5 minutes instead, that's a completely different story. And I'm not saying to like lower people's clear speed or something like that, but I feel like introducing the things that people are familiar with, like for instance, the Zana, like they're doing now, where somebody goes into a Zana and they're essentially doing another map, and that giving them essentially double time to think about what they're doing, that's like a step in the right direction. But also, that being said, when you guys were talking about the Atlas pages, that was something that I was really for when the Atlas came out. I was like, how the fuck does this not have pages? It was unbelievable to me that they didn't introduce it with pages. And it seems like they wanted to get around that concept. And in a way, because Atlas is in such a good state now, I thought, I kind of forgot about it. I was like, I'm okay with this. But the more we talk about this and the more we're discussing it, I think with your Elder Orb, you should get Atlas pages, straight up. Get an Elder Orb, you get another Atlas page.
For anyone who doesn't know what we mean by Atlas pages, we basically mean a second Atlas, so we could have like 2 different setups.
It would be interesting. I think GGG wants to have some sort of opportunity cost to reinventing your Atlas and to decide making the decisions that you make and what you shape and what you elder and what you complete. If like switching back and forth between an Atlas page had some sort of cost to it, I don't know. I don't necessarily agree with the fundamental decision that there needs to be a cost, but GGG seems to think so. So I don't think that Atlas pages would ever be implemented like as basically a get out of jail free card if you decide you want to shape your Atlas one way one day and then shape it a different way the next.
I feel like that's good. That would be so good though, even for the average player. Like, how many people as streamers, how many people do you get all the time where it's just like, especially me, because I do mostly shaped maps, right? With like SSF and everything. I do mostly shaped maps. And so often do I have people coming into the stream and going, hey, how do you only drop these maps? And I explain it to them and they're like, wow, so I really fucked up then and my Atlas is ruined. And I'm like, well, not necessarily. It's just different, right? You can do all these other things that, for instance, I can't engage with. But they're so set on this idea that they want to do the thing that I'm doing that they can't see the upside to the other things. And now they feel like their Atlas is just ruined because the cost of fixing it is
It's way higher.
It's too much. And like that's also like the Atlas teaches you to clear maps. It teaches you to get bonus objective from the very beginning. And then to somehow get to a point without like outside knowledge where that's not a good thing, it's just so punishing. It's too much.
I think that really points to something that's prevalent in Path of Exile overall, that the game does a disservice to its players sometimes by trying to get them to interact with the mechanic in such a way that isn't necessarily optimal. Like with building out your Atlas piece by piece and completing every map. We can tie that even into Incursion, where I've been Betrayal. I don't know why I get the names mixed up, but I've been experimenting with building rivalries on my chart. And every third person or like every fourth person I talk to now that shows up at an event wants me to remove all the rivalries from my chart. But that's turned out not to be a great idea. Like GGG really wants you to remove all the rivalries from your chart all the time. But if you have more rivalries, you get less options to betray, which means in the place of those betrayal options, because people only betray each other if they're allied to each other, in place of those betrayal options, you more often get the ability to execute and rank people up and put them in the branches that you want. So I build my safe houses faster and get high-ranked members in the right places faster and get more rewards more quickly. Now that does mean that I never get the opportunity to like rank up all of one branch and derank all of another, because that's a betrayal option. I never get like 30 raw intelligence on a branch all at once. But in place of that, I get a much more consistent syndicate chart that I can more frequently get what I want out of, rather than gambling on big highs.
See, but that's something that's fixable, though.
This is true. There's a lot more forgiveness there.
Yeah, but with your Atlas, I mean, you can fix it, but good fucking luck getting rid of 25 red maps off of your Atlas.
It was more just my point that like Path of Exile is a game that isn't always straightforward in its reward structure.
When is it ever straightforward in its reward structure?
You shouldn't always do what Path of Exile tells you you should do to get the reward.
I mean, you should, but it's probably not going to be the most rewarding thing.
Like, it's never going to be a terrible option.
Yeah, that's the thing too.
But it won't always be the best option.
The thing is also that there's so many different playstyles and so many different things that people want to engage with, that especially with the Atlas, it's like, if they just want currency and that's their goal and what they want out of the game, then yeah, they might just make a different decision. And that's somewhat irreversible because they want currency and now they have to invest currency to make currency. I mean, that's a pretty simple thing, but if you have to invest all your currency to start making any, it's like...
I think that's a bit of an extreme statement. I think like one thing that people often get lost in when it comes to PoE is, as you said, like someone will see you doing something and then they know that they're not doing exactly what you're doing, so they feel like they've completely fucked up. I experienced that because I took a break from PoE the first league that Atlas was introduced, so I came into it like one after, and it took me like 2 or 3 leagues to kind of like, oh, it's fine if I'm not doing this one setup. it's whatever. Like currently, if you're doing full Atlas completion right now and you're just playing PoE, you'll make currency. Like there's this weird idea that you have to do this like very specific map with this very specific. If you just play the game and pick up items, you're gonna make currency if you just play the game. But there is so much of PoE now where it's kind of like, I think someone said it quite well earlier, there's a lot of complexity, but there's not as much depth as there really seems to be. And I think that's Bestiary perfectly. Like, it's this very complex system, but in the current state, there's not really much depth in how you engage with it. And I think that a lot of the Atlas, in its current state, with how expensive it is to do massive sweeping changes, a lot of players are locked out of that depth, just economically.
I think as well, you talked about how you can just kind of play the game now and do almost any strat and still make decent money. Part of that, I think, has been intentional design by GDG, because a lot of the mechanics they've released over the past few leagues have evened out like the play experience over, you know, a few hours of playing the game compared to previously. Like if we're going all the way back to early Atlas and we're talking like shape strand meta or something like that, the person who's running super efficient shape strands is going to have a much different play experience than the person who's just alching and going on random maps. But now both of those players have the opportunity to potentially do a like high eye level temple, which will be the same for both of them, or to do some delving, which will be the same for both of them. Depending, you know, if your delve chart is deeper, you get more rewards and it's higher quality. But still, like you have these external mechanics to the Atlas that are being generated as you're running the Atlas, safe houses included, that are evening out the play experience across the board for players, because not everyone is spending all of their time in maps anymore.
Totally. I totally agree. Like the thing also about the depth argument is that I feel like PoE had this very clear point of transition, because that's something that I used to complain about, the illusion of choice in the skill tree, and how realistically it's not as deep as it seemingly was in the past. And the thing is, because in the past, Path of Exile was complex skill tree and complex crafting. This crafting boiled through all aspects of the game, from creating gear and making currency into even mapping and obtaining experience. And those were like the depth things of Path of Exile. But now, like, I feel like you can't really alienate or not alienate, but single out individual systems and look at them as one thing. But you need to look at Path of Exile as like the whole deal, because realistically, not a lot of systems in PoE systems have a lot of complexity, but Path of Exile as a whole makes up for it because there's so much different shit, right? So yeah, is Bestiary like particularly complex? Not really, but pair it up with 4 other league mechanics and you've got a pretty interesting league, you know? And I think that's really why Betrayal has been so successful, because it's just this melting pot of all these different little things that make up for a nice experience. I personally prefer heading into that direction. I like it a lot more.
I agree with that, but I think Octavian said this best on the last Baeclast, actually. The current iteration of Bestiary is fine and it's good for PoE, and I agree. Like I'm really enjoying this league. I know we've complained a lot, but I think the current patch is like the best PoE's ever been. However, for the people who enjoyed Bestiary League for what it is, that is gone. So the people who actually enjoyed the league then, they've lost that. And that's a real shame, that it's kind of like the people who really enjoyed that league and wanted that league to come back and was like, yeah, I loved all the aspects. All of those aspects are gone. Now it's just Einhar sounds cool and that's nice. He's a talking strongbox. And it's like...
Yeah, okay.
Still have, I mean, that's like, because Bestiary also had all the new crafting opportunities and all that. So it's not entirely just, it's more like the way you obtain the Bestiary part, the beasts, that's gone. To say that everything that if you like Bestiary is gone is not really true. Like,
I mean,
the
I've
league
got
mechanic
aspect
has said something.
skills now, which is cool, but like...
The league mechanic has had something of a lobotomy.
Yeah.
It's lost part of it that made
I
it.
agree.
Yeah, but nobody liked it, so fuck it, dude.
But that's not true.
No, like
as like right
this
here.
This is turning into the Bestiary episode, but
you literally have 3 people who are actually
as like
enjoyed it. And
No,
then
As
there's
like
I
a
really
final
liked
note.
Bestiary. I really liked
Oh,
Bestiary.
then we have 4.
Yeah, but
Okay, there we go.
we're not the average player of Path of
No,
Exile.
no.
Like what
You have to be
perceive
able to
as
look past your
enjoyable-
bias somewhat.
Yeah, what we perceive as enjoyable doesn't necessarily mean it's good for the game, you know? I really like SSF, but I wouldn't want PoE to be balanced around SSF and like the whole game to be solo self-found. Like that'd be fucking garbage. But I like it the most, right? So it's like you
Okay,
can't really approach it like that.
I think that there's too much emphasis on making things balanced around trade, rather than just balanced around gameplay and fun. Right?
Agreed.
It's not supposed to be balanced around SSF or trade. Fuck any of that. It should be all about the experience whenever you engage with it.
I agree with that 100%. And also, one thing briefly, the fact that to currently engage with Bestiary that you need to buy the orbs makes it an even more piss poor thing, because how many players are realistically orbing their beasts and putting them up for trade? So even if you want to engage with it, you're very limited by how people are actually fucking orbing their shit.
More people should, because it's still good money.
Yeah,
Not as good as it was back in Bestiary, because you can't target farm it, but like you still like drop a 90C beast every once in a while. You should go check your menagerie.
It reminds me a lot
People
of Essence and that thing. It's like if you guys ever tried doing Essence of Fear crafted jewelry, you're like, oh, I get to craft these really fun items, which means I get to spend hours trying to buy this specific essence of PoE trade, and it's horrible. And yeah.
See, that's the thing, right? That's why I want there to be a little bit more agency of what you do, right? If you want to farm that thing, you should be able to.
I honestly that's like the strongest argument that I think you've made for the system that you mentioned before, because that's a topic that I would really love to jump on. Just how engaging the game is, because like it really creeps into you. For instance, we were earlier talking, I don't think this was on the podcast just prior to it, so some of you guys might have not heard it, but we were talking about what we've been doing and whatnot, and Nugi mentioned that he's on, I think you said 30 hours now, and you've got like a level 95 character, and you've
4 or
killed,
5.
yeah, and you've killed like all guardians. And like when I'm racing on SSF, to me that's like, wow, that's really good pace, that's nice, like I hope to do the same. And that's like a really fast thing that you can do. And every day I tune into your stream, you've got all this progression done. But then when I'm on Trade League, I feel like I don't get anything fucking done in a day. Like it's been a week and I've leveled 2 characters to like level 90, you know, and I feel like I'm playing a lot. And yeah, I just feel that it is important to put that emphasis on actual gameplay, and that's where, yeah, I think a lot of people's fun could come from when it comes to trade, because I also don't understand the concept of everybody speeding up. Like the game is way faster than what it used to be, but we can't have like a trading auction house for currency, for instance, because it would be too fast. Like I don't get that. I want to do maps, man. I don't want to be
That's another
trading
can of worms.
fucking alchemy orbs, okay? So I think that really highlights that there are some issues there.
Yeah. I don't know if we want to have the auction house conversation, because we've spent like an hour talking about Bestiary.
It's just something to highlight that really like would it have made that big of a difference? Like even if people would speed up 10%, I just feel like a lot of the statements for GGG are outdated and they don't really line up with how the game currently evolves. Because the emphasis of gameplay is like #1.
One short story that you guys might find mildly enjoyable. So since I'm doing my private league, it has something like 150 people in it. Realistically, this late in the league, there's probably an active 20, 30 of us on there. And when you play private league, you can use the official trade API, so we have trade. A lot of the items people got that are very niche, it's like someone got it and they logged out like 3 weeks ago and hasn't logged back in. I think the last 5 items I've bought have been, hi, can you ring your mate and text him to try and get him to log in so I can buy this item? And, oh, I think I've got that guy in a guild in another game. Let me go on Battle.net real quick. And, like, everything has been, let me just, like, try and find someone through Facebook. And, yeah, so, trade, by the way. Yeah. So,
Yikes. Yeah, that whole ordeal was pretty weird.
yeah,
It did make for a pretty nice meme, though.
yeah. But, yeah, so what about the other things when it comes to... And that wasn't me, like, trying to take shots at Demi. For the record, those are things I've actually been doing. When it
Well,
comes
it's not
to...
just a demi, it was somebody else that did it, though.
Yeah, it was just chat saying whatever. But so when it came to stuff to do with like Bestiary, we're a bit mixed. When it comes to the implementation of Alva, since we're just like kind of gonna go through them. Go on, Mr. Octavian. Have your little
You
rant.
can't get the same room twice within the space of 3 incursions
Oh,
in the
yeah.
map. Makes getting a T3 version of a room really tough. There is one trick you can do though that has very limited application, very minor. If you enter a map and you get the room that you really, really want to get to rank 3 as your first incursion, what you do is you then skip the other incursions in that map, because the next 2, she'll keep offering you the same garbage room. And then in the next map, she'll offer it again, and you run it there. And then the one after that could theoretically be what you need, which if you would run them all out in the same map, never could happen. Because by separating them through like the first map you find, the second map you find, in the space of those 3 incursions you actually run, you've entered a new map now, and that resets her ability to give you the room you want. But the fact that you have to resort to that sort of chicanery to be able to have any level of control at all over building a temple is really dumb.
You have to essentially give up Alvas in your very nicely rolled map to then increase your odds of getting the right.
And it doesn't even increase it that much. Like, it's not even that big a deal.
It's very small, yeah.
But like, if you're really targeting that room, you would want to do that. And it's another case, like we were talking about earlier, where the game, like what the game tells you to do, isn't what you should be doing necessarily.
Quick question.
I don't know.
Oh, there's another thing, by the way. Remember to if you don't spawn, if you're looking for the study room, the map room, if you do not spawn it inside of the map, right? If you actually don't, you have to open Alva inside of the map. Otherwise, the initial layout for your new, if you do it in your hideout, the initial layout for your new temple will be that of a lower level zone, which cannot spawn the study room. So it cannot. It cannot.
Wait, what? Say that again?
Yes, you cannot innately spawn the study room if you open it in your hideout. It will not be there because the zone of the hideout is too low to allow for it to spawn. And it keeps. This is from Uber. This is from Uber. I believe Uber is right.
Uber's generally pretty good with this stuff.
Generally right.
I feel like we would have noticed.
Open Alva in maps.
I need some proof for this. As much as I trust Uber,
I'll be watching for that next time I get a map room.
Yeah.
I don't know. There's something. I'm not sure if I'm explaining it correctly, but there is a lower chance due to the hideout zone level.
I can imagine you've probably done what I do whenever I try and explain a carve mechanic, where Uber's like frothing at the mouth. Like you've explained it slightly wrong, but technically right.
I might have. Yeah. I mean, I was not really paying attention. I was trying to like push my my atlas, so I was like, but
it's such a small thing as well.
Essentially, you need to open it inside of the map. That is what it boils down to.
The other
but that sucks.
Alva,
yes, it does. It sucks.
Since you can get multiple Alvas in a map now, if you have 2 Alvas that are near each other, it's really fun. When you walk back and forth between them, they'll keep popping into and out of existence, saying just in time. You can get them to like yell at each other. But if you open one of the incursions, then walk over to the other Alva, she teleports there, and you lose the one you opened. So don't do that.
That has happened to me. The most annoying time that happened to me was last night. I talked to her as like I was clearing an abyss for some stupid reason. I was like, oh, let me just finish this abyss, take 2 steps, and it despawns. I'm like... But I wanted to ask briefly, because I got a really glowy brain strat. This is like a workaround for the hideout people in chat. What level are your Alvas, out of interest?
I think 7. I just got the achievement recently to get all the masters to 7, so yeah, that one.
Can she be a different level?
Yeah, you have to level her up for hideout stuff. Most people are stuck at 5 or 6. And my friend Derek, who's like the king of all the hideout stuff, he was raging like, why is my stuff stuck at 5? And the way to power level Alva, and also if you want to power farm Favor, if you want to try and craft hideouts, is to run Quarry. If you spam reset Quarry, In 2 hours, he got a level 7 Alva, and he also said he was getting something like 4 mil favor yesterday. So he was getting 1 million favor an hour.
Oh.
And Nugi's turned his camera off again.
We lost him.
So yeah, if anyone's trying to do cool hideout stuff, or you want to hit level 7 Alva, then go back to Quarry. And yeah.
Yeah, the way you level up Alva is by completing rooms, getting them to tier 3, I believe.
Apparently, so that's what Derek said. Apparently it's not even that. Apparently it's just entering the rooms.
Like entering T3 rooms?
Yeah.
Yeah, actually that would line up, because she dinged level 7 after I built a temple and entered a T3 armory room. It's interesting. Does that mean you could level your Alva by like running with other people on their temples?
Probably,
sense, right?
probably. So I think that also means you can like sell challenges and stuff through like having people just like enter.
I don't know if that would work.
I don't know.
Anyways, yeah, it's frustrating, because actually I think Incursion was rolled into the base game pretty well. I was hoping to see maybe some like new temple. Honestly, with the amount of content we got with Betrayal, I'm not too terribly disappointed by that. It's just there's like the fact that Alva is limited to giving you a room once in a map is so frustrating. It makes building, in particular, the Itziri temple room, I forget, I think it's called Throne of Itziri, makes that one really hard. And it's one of the ones in the challenge, because you'll never get that at rank 1, like in a starting layout of a temple. You have to build that from 0 up to 3. So it's the hardest room to reach rank 3 with, and I imagine it's going to be one of the last challenges I complete this league.
Do you think that was an intended thing, or do you think that was one of the many kind of like accidental buggy things?
I think that, yeah, I think it was part of like maybe a restriction in how they implemented having 3 incursions in a map or something like that.
Raiz, you're
by the
being
way.
uncharacteristically quiet for once.
Sorry, IRL shit going on.
Oh, that's okay. Everyone's got their mums over cleaning up, apparently.
And Nugi sounds like he's gonna transformer in the back room.
Delve was implemented pretty well, in my opinion. Well, rockily with the fuel costs at the start, but with the changes to capacity and fuel costs, I think it's decent now.
Do you want to have your little rant about how people need to invest into their Delve thing?
People need to invest into their Delve things.
What do you mean?
So they seem to have shortened the difficulty scaling as well as the reward scaling. And by that, I mean depth, like I've pushed a little bit past depth 600, and I'm already seeing delves that are like as difficult as depth like 750 was last league.
Nice.
So it's been tightened. As well as that, they've tightened the reward scaling, and I'm seeing cities every like 5 feet, so to speak. Like it's they are everywhere. I've found 7 alls, which is like 2 more than I found in the entirety of last league. And you're only, what, a little less than halfway through the league at this point? You find fossils, you find money nodes. And the advice I generally give people who ask me, like, what's the optimal depth? Should I be going horizontally at 400, 500? The optimal depth is the deepest your build can handle while still doing cities. Like, it doesn't stop getting more rewarding as you go deeper. You should keep digging down, because the fuel cost doesn't scale up. And the fuel cost also caps earlier. Like 860 or so is where the fuel cost caps now, according to one of my friends. Actually, it's Grim, according to Grim, who's been pushing deep. So you're not going to be paying any more. It just gets harder. So if you can deal with the difficulty, it is ridiculously more rewarding, and it's also a permanent investment. It's sort of like building an atlas. The deeper you get, the more rewarding your delves will be every time you delve. And you never lose that investment. You don't have to dig down again. You're already down there every time you go back to your delve chart.
Like in general, it seems like depths are just a lot more rewarding altogether. Like people are even saying that fossils are a lot more common further down than like running the early stuff.
Well, not the fossils behind wall. The fossils that show up on the
Oh,
so like
that's
fractured or hollow, those kind of fossils, those are way, way, way more common. Like I found again, comparing it to last league, because I've done this same trek basically with the same character, both of these leagues now. I'm finding those fossils about as often now at depth 600 to 700 as I was last league at depth 900 to 1000. So they have drastically shortened the scaling, but they've also made it harder, which I kind of like.
That sounds really good, to be honest. Sounds
Delve
like
is
a lot more balanced system.
Delve is like by far the most rewarding league mechanic ever added to the game. Like a mile ahead of everything else, pretty much.
See, that's what I wanted to look into too.
Not necessarily mechanic or mechanics when stacked on each other. Like full MFing and pure breachstones is still ridiculous. But as far as a core game mechanic goes, Delve, I think, is the most rewarding.
Huh.
How much of that is dependent on the fossil farming for the syndicate blocking? Like, if that disappeared and the market of like being able to buy sulfite scarabs dried up, like how dependent is your strat on being able to buy that stuff?
I think sulfite scarabs would just go up in price. I think there'd still be a bunch available. They would probably, I imagine, like without blocking and without appropriately targeting things on your syndicate chart, which you also have to imagine a lot of people aren't doing. And like probably the bulk of the source of them is not coming from that. Like I'd say 50-50, maybe that's a wild guess. They'd probably go up by like maybe double in price. So they'd go to like being 60 chaos-ish in softcore, which if I had to pay 60 chaos per gilded sulfite scarab, I would still happily buy them at the depth that I'm at.
What?
Yep.
What the fuck? That sounds insane.
Like
I
early on in the league, I was buying gilded sulfite scarabs to push my delve chart down really deep, and I was only at like the depth 400 to 500. And in 2 days worth of doing that at depth 400 to 500-ish, which, as I've mentioned, is a lot worse rewards than like 600, 700, 800 keep scaling, I went from 2 or 3 Elder Armories to more than a full map tab worth of them from basically delve, like 80%, 70% from delves. That was most of my map sustain. And on top of that, you get currency nodes and you get fossils to sell and you get tons and tons of shit.
Damn. In a way, this is like the coolest thing because that's exactly what I wanted out of Delve. Although it seems like you really gotta get down for that to kick in.
The
like,
worst
really
thing you
get
can
down.
do for yourself is delve horizontally at like minimum eye level 83. Like I've had a lot of people in my chat saying, why aren't you just delving at floor 260? Like the fuel cost is less and you're still in I-83. Yeah, but like it's so shitty. It's like doing T16 Alk and Go instead of doing T16 with chisels and with like sextants and with prophecy investment and all that stuff. Like that is the comparison you can make to doing really early delves at I-83 as opposed to digging down deeper. You are doing yourself a massive disservice. And it's not even an accurate comparison because the cost isn't much higher. Like the cost of digging sideways at depth like 280 is like 700 a node. The cost of digging sideways at depth like 600 is 860 a node or something. Like it's so much better for barely any more price. You just have to be able to do the cities. They get really rippy. That is the watermark you have to hit. It's not a matter of investment not being worth the cost. It's a matter of having a build that can actually do it.
Which is good.
Yes, I'd say.
How do you feel about
difficulty?
Yeah.
Is it comparable difficulty wise to like what it was last league?
It's harder.
It's
like the zones get mods faster now. Like a depth 600 zone has the number of mods that I would see on like a depth 700 something zone last league. Like they're scaling up harder.
So bad.
Yeah, not a ton, but like I'm actually a little worried about being able to hit Delve 1000, which the build was able to do last league. I'm playing, if anything, a better version of it this league, and I don't know if I'll be able to make it.
So you're telling me to stay out?
No, in hardcore, it would be so much money because you would be one of the few people in the league doing that and like reaping the rewards, not only of all the map and currency drops, but also the Delve specific rewards like crazy hollow fossils and shit like that.
That's
I don't know
what
how much
I thought about Uber all there too.
Yeah,
baby. But again, it's going to kill you eventually because you're going to do an Abyssal City with crit and extra damage as lightning. A phase run fucker is going to run up to you and just one-shot you and you can't do anything to him.
Of course. Wait, what? No, that's not true. You just play cultist.
What you need
When
to...
they're in phase run, they're not affected by your curses, so they're not like slowed from the temp change. They get it next year. They are affected by the enfeeble as they come out of phase run.
Yeah, exactly. So they never crit you. Because you have
Yeah,
like
I mean,
90% damage
a
reduction.
cultist is good. I'm not disagreeing, but I think eventually you'd come up against the city that kills you.
Sure, it'll happen.
Raiz, if you want to make good money off it, what you need to do is you need to just buy the scarabs and give them to Uberdan, and the deal is you get a cut of all of his like profits. So you just let a good player do it, and you'll be like, A-okay.
I don't know. I saw Dan died on something. Oh yeah, on Phoenix. So, I
Ruby
don't know,
Flask
that-
OP.
he died
maybe
in
he's losing his touch. I don't know. Nobody can be trusted anymore. Hardcore gamers washed up, dude.
Feels bad, man. But one thing I'm curious about though, since we talked earlier about how we wanted more of the like gameplay to be in the gameplay and not in opening like loud candy bars into the microphone, rather than like being stuff to do with trade windows. Do you like the fact, Octavian, that so much of Delve is like buying scarabs, or is that just like a meme? Are you dependent? Are you just like running maps and it's alright, or?
In order to dig deep, you are dependent on buying sulfite scarabs. It would take so long to do it yourself off just like daily missions and scarabs that you build yourself. But the nice thing is, if I get a sulfite scarab and it doesn't screw me over with a 1 out of 1 mission from Nico, I get like 15 to 16,000 sulfite from a well-rolled T16 map. That's enough to dig for like, I don't know, 10 plus minutes-ish, usually. It's obviously going to vary depending on what depth you're at. You could dig for literally hours if you did a really early delve, which that's the other way you should get profit out of delve. You should never delve in the middle. You should be delving really early or really deep. That's it. If you're delving in the middle, you're making a mistake because you're spending your fuel the least efficiently possible for the worst rewards you could be getting for the fuel you're spending. But yeah, like I only really have to buy a sulfite scarab or a collection of them, like if I can buy 3 or something from a dude, once every 20, 30 minutes. Maybe a little more often, a little less often than that, if I get lucky.
Okay, and then also, how are you running it? Like, how are you setting up your map to get the most return from your scarab?
I use a Tempest Prophecy, because that adds 15 quant. I use 2 sack frags. I actually don't use a Zana map device mod, because then I get 8 extra quant from Zana. I roll the map for over 90 plus quant, and then I run it.
So you run the map, and then you kill monsters in the map.
Yes, I run the map and actually kill the monsters.
And then you click the thing and you pick up the loot.
Yes.
Okay, cool. Sorry. Sometimes these strats are very complex.
No, I do click the sulfite nodes in the map. Okay. Yes, that is a necessary step in acquiring it.
Have you done any like betrayal farming, like the blocking and everything?
I haven't like run Harbor Bridge super fast or something like that, but I do have transportation and fortification blocked. And like I mentioned earlier, I've been experimenting with keeping every rivalry that I can on my chart. And that's actually been helpful in generating sulfite scarabs faster because more people show up to more missions because they all hate each other and want each other to die. So like almost every mission I get has 3 or 4 syndicate members showing up, and they don't want to betray each other because they hate each other, and for some reason that makes them not want to betray each other. Don't really understand that. They can only betray each other if they're allied. So I get to rank people up really often. So I get to put Chimeria into rank 3 intervention really often.
Noogie's killing me.
I'm sorry.
It's okay. Is the chocolate bar good, Noogie?
One thing which I'm noticing it increasingly with Pee-wee, like we had this obviously with Delve, we're having it now with a bit of Betrayal. How do you guys feel about the fact that it seems like the vast majority of players are in, as you say, the middle ground, and that is the like worst way of doing the mechanic, and it seems very polarizing. Yeah. You either want to be on the extreme, like low-level zone, or super high investment.
It's because you want to be spending your time when you're spending either your time or your currency efficiently in Path of Exile. And kind of you do both when you're doing the highest investment stuff. But what I mean by that is you can either just spend very little currency and so guaranteed make a profit back because of that by alking and going on white maps, or doing the equivalent in Delve, which is running at like level 50 Delves or something. Or you can realize that your time is your most valuable resource in this game and spend as much currency as you can reasonably to roll your content to the point where it's going to be the most time efficient to run because it's got the most quantity and it'll give you back the most returns. And since that's just kind of a dichotomy that's baked into the game and how something like Path of Exile works, I don't think any mechanic can really escape that.
Yeah.
A room full of groans is not usually what I want a point to be received by.
I agree with what you're saying. I'm just not sure if I necessarily think that's a good thing. I'm trying to think of ways around it.
I don't know if I'm not trying to, like, by stating its existence, say it's a good thing necessarily. But I think it's core to just how a game like Path of Exile is going to be played by the player base.
I still.
I'm not sure what point. I'm not sure what. Okay, I'm not sure what point you're trying to make here. That's all, because it's like, yeah, your time is worth money. You run things more efficiently and you invest more, and it generates more. Yes, like in the economy. I'm not really.
Well, the point that I'm trying to make is that, well, it was more in response to Tarke's question, but the point that I'm trying to make is that since that's sort of a core attribute to how Path of Exile works, league mechanics in general are going to follow that rule. And like it's just a pattern that Tarke noticed, and I was trying to explain the details of that. Like, you know, for syndicate farming, you can do the really early strat and running just Harbor Bridge super fast to spawn syndicates and have low investment content that pays out, you know, basically guaranteed as a result. You can do really early delves. You can do, you know, Al can go super fast on maps, that sort of thing. Like, it's a pattern that you'll notice across all of the core mechanics of Path of Exile.
So basically what we're kind of saying is we either have the current, like, Bestiary, where we can't really engage with it, or we're always going to have the extreme, super low level, super high investment kind of farm.
Or like in the case of Delve, no investment and super high reward.
No.
Low level
It
stuff.
takes, no. It takes in the beginning.
Yeah.
How do you feel about the current, like,
Capitalism
low delve
memes
stuff,
on
by the way?
What's up?
How do you feel about the low delve stuff currently? Because I feel like that's, for the vast majority of players, I feel like that's probably what they should be doing. Because I don't think it's realistic that most people do what Octavian is and going full investment.
Okay. I think that most players shouldn't be doing that if they don't actually enjoy it.
Yeah, if you don't enjoy it, then
you
don't
should be doing. Like, this is the thing I hate when people say in PoE, you should be doing X and Y. No, you should be having fun and learning about the game. Okay, if you're objective, okay, if someone comes into your channel and says, hey, I would like to make as much currency as I can within 2 days, and I just started. Okay, this is what you should be doing, because now you're being specific. And someone comes into the channel, I'm new, what should I be doing?
Yeah.
I think
really
what's the best build?
Yeah, it's
for what?
Yeah, exactly.
But I think people should give early delving a shot if they're interested in making some currency to fund a new build or something, and they've not tried it before, because it can be a nice sort of rhythmic kind of gameplay. It's not particularly intense. You know, you're in like a level 69 or 71 zone or something, so most stuff can't touch you. And it is a lot more engaging than Darkness running was last league. Because you do have to actually, like, shepherd the cart along and break walls in order to get loot, because they've drastically nerfed the loot not behind walls while buffing the loot behind walls a ton. So if you're doing the old strat of, like, you know, running around in the darkness with flares now, because darkness has flat damage, to try and click fossils and boxes and infinitely rerun the same zone, you're going to get, like, pennies for your time.
Yeah, it's not a good idea.
But, I mean, I agree with you.
Wait, even at the low levels?
Yeah,
like
even at the low, you want to be like pushing the cart along, and like, because the fuel costs are minuscule.
Yeah,
like I mentioned earlier,
nothing.
with a single invested gilded sulfide scarab, you can. Bye-bye, Nugi.
The timing was really good on that, can I just say? Because that happened at the exact same time I accidentally unplugged my headphones, and so no one in chat could hear anything, so it was perfectly fine. Yeah.
Nice. Nicely done.
It's been a while since the last episode, guys. We're slowly getting back into the swing of things.
This is jitters. New Year jitters.
This is the new format. Next stream, my mom's cleaning up my place.
Yeah.
But yeah, Delve is really good. You should either do it earlier or deep. Don't delve at floor 250. It's a trap. It's not worth it.
I've only done that.
Isn't there like there's still a good reason to do it. If you find a 250 with like a nice juicy zone to flare farm, right? So you're talking about
aiming
pushing
for
the
XP.
cart at 250 is a bad idea.
If you're if you're paying fuel for it, don't delve.
Yes.
If your goal is XP and you find a zone with like Bloodlines Beyond some decent pack size, then do that, sure. But most players, their goal isn't to flare farm for XP. Most players are delving and paying the fuel cost, I'd say.
Yeah.
So I think a good transition from that would be pure breachstones.
True.
XP, by the way.
XP. Yeah,
I haven't actually done any because privately. Well, I've done like one.
I haven't
but...
done any because I have morals, man. I don't know. I do the same thing with Beachhead. I feel
don't
like
like
it's gonna
pure
kill the game
breachstones.
for me.
The reason I don't like pure breachstones is because you cannot clear them faster than they let you clear them. So there's no differential past a certain ceiling towards how quickly they can be run. So anyone running pure breachstones is getting the same XP per hour as anyone else running pure breachstones. And there's no like skill differential in clearing it more efficiently or something. Like you just clear at the speed that it opens. That's it.
I don't think that's bad at all.
Really?
Yeah.
Like
no, I don't
it
think so.
eliminates the decision making in I'm going to run this map over this one because I can run the layout faster or the density is better. Like I'm going to roll these sextants and keep these ones. If you're aiming for XP, there's small decisions you have to make between maps being run and what maps you actually choose. And breachstones, lull decisions, just put breachstone in map device, enter, kill. That's the whole decision process.
Well,
Like it becomes a race of who can buy more pure breachstones.
Yeah, no, it's way too rewarding in terms of XP, no doubt. I like
for
the
how
breachstone
simplistic the system is.
Yeah,
That's
and it like I think the pure breachstone should have like 500% life on monsters and 100% increased damage instead of
Like
only
make
12.
them much more challenging.
Yeah, much more, way more. They should be like nearly impossible to do. That should be a pure breachstone. Fuck that. Like people should die if they go in there, but the reward should be there as well.
That would
I
be
think it's
similar
way
to how
too easy. Yes.
Similar to how Delve works, where like they've tightened the damage scaling and the reward scaling.
The pure breachstone sustain themselves, and they're like 60 times more rewarding. But I mean, it's a similar concept. But wouldn't this take it from like?
Should be fucking extreme. If you want that, you should be fearful for your life, whether or not you can even make it. It should not
Maybe
be
they could
lightly. It should not be a decision that you take lightly.
They
at
could
all.
maybe mess with the timer as well, like make it even more
Make it
tight.
faster. Yeah.
I
Faster?
just like how little decision making there is in it. Like it's boiling down Path of Exile to nothing but put thing in device, shoot, kill, move, which is kind of what Path of Exile is at its base. And the reason why the game is fun is because there's these layers of complexity that take you away from that. And that's why pure breachstones to me just aren't that much fun past the first few times I ran them, and they had the shock factor of, oh my god, this zone is so cool. It's not really anymore.
Remember Breach League, the first time you did a Chariula Breach? How scary and how tight that timer was? That's what I'm talking about.
Oh my god, I was really terrible at the game, and I was too scared to even try and run one because I just knew I would fuck up and lose it. I didn't try one until Harbinger League, and even then it was tough for me. So yeah, no, that would be a fun feeling to try and recapture, but they would probably need a massive multiplier in order to do so with how much power creep we've had since then.
I think also it's one of those things that in PoE especially, if you're doing the Uber version, you want the Uber version to be challenging, you know. Even if you look at like Uber Azaro to Merciless, you know, Uber Azaro is very easy for an Uber, but you can still, you know, kill quite people quite easily. Then you compare like Uber Itziri to Itziri, Uber Elder to Elder, you know. So then you want what is this?
I have a glory brain moment.
Do it then.
Go ahead.
What if pure breachstone spawned with a veiled mod of a specific difficulty, right? So you do the level 1 has 1 veiled mod, level 2 is 2, and then level 3 is 3. And you decide, you make your own adventure.
That would be cool.
But you mean like in a negative way?
Yeah. So
Yeah,
you have to
like
choose the
criminal.
one fitting you. Yeah. So something crazy. Mm-hmm. You fit the system.
I'd like that a lot more. Like the thing is, I would like that a lot more because I think that pure breachstones are not. We don't fucking need that shit. Like it's fine to have it for like a league, the same way it was fine to have Beachhead, but I don't know if this stays, it just makes for a very weird game. We don't want power leveling, by the way.
I mean, at
Like-
least Beachhead had unique items coming from it, which is also one of the really annoying things about it, because it's like I finally managed to get a flow untethered in my private league, and that was a pain in the ass because it was that I got the first half of the belt week 1. I'm like, yes, and then it was like nothing. Yeah, I finished it. Cool, but yeah.
And like Beachhead as well, at least had a section of it that cared about your clear speed. The boss
Don't
fight
talk
in the
about
middle didn't
Beachhead
really.
like it's dead.
But
Okay.
it has present tense. A section in it that cares something about your clear speed. Like unless you're just running to the middle boss doing that and then leaving, which you could do, even then you have to clear like half the map to get there. Like it's not time gated. You can do it faster or slower depending on how good your build is and whether or not your build has more movement speed than someone else's. Like there's a way to get a variable amount of XP out of a beachhead. If you're running Kayula Breachstones, you can only go so fast. Everyone who's buying and running those is going to be going that fast. Like you're not going to be challenged by them. And that just means everyone's on the same even keel of XP gain. Whoever buys more faster wins.
Yeah, I've never seen anybody die in one of those. Even to the boss. I haven't seen a clip or anything. You guys seen any of that?
I can tell you that they don't do enough damage. They just don't. Like 12% more damage is like nothing. So if you can, if you can sustain that, and everyone can sustain that, it's like. I mean, I did the soft one, right? I was like, I got hit by him a few times. It's like, yeah, okay. You build his sustain and you know the mechanic, you'll never die.
I don't really know what their thought process was when they made it. They're probably just like, oh, that's cool.
Yeah, I think that captures it.
No, but like, it's just...
That was my reaction on running the first one. I actually really enjoyed running like 1 or 2 of them. But as a like mechanic endemic to a trade league, they're not great. Like they are oppressive to other ways of gaining XP.
That's what I meant. I'm surprised they put something in which gave that much ridiculous XP for just a little bit of like wow factor. And it's not as if it's like, because at least one of the cool things about Beachhead is as you're clearing it at the end, you've got like that little loot pinata picking up all the little shards and stuff. So that's like, ooh, feels kind of fun and exciting and kind of unique. But I don't really know what we gain. Like, do you think if they just deleted it, would we lose anything?
Delete what?
Pure breachstones.
I mean, they're
Like
good.
right
They're
now,
going
no.
out. There's no way they're gonna stay, right?
They're way too strong. They're way too good for the current iteration of them. Way too good.
I mean,
XP
unless
gain
they
might be good,
manually
right?
remove them, like Betrayal's going core, so unless they manually remove them from the mechanic, the thought process is they will be in the game.
Oh, they're going to be a lot more rare.
The one positive thing I can say about Breachstones is that they have made it so that splinters have retained their value, which is kind of nice. It's helped buff breaches because, breaches have been nerfed a few times consecutively now, but they feel better defined because I care about splinter drops. Even if only just to put my own Breachstones together to then purify them and run them eventually. But, like, that's about the only nice thing I can say.
That's
Yeah,
a
but
point.
like in the chat, it freaks out. Betrayal going core.
Is
why?
that? I mean, if you think Betrayal isn't going core,
How
then
else-
you've kind
how
of
else are they
fucked
gonna
up a little bit.
incorporate crap?
Yeah, even I'm not gonna question this one.
Like,
Holy
okay, let's
shit.
just briefly break it down. Okay, guys, with GGG, we've planned this 4-league structure building towards this one final point which we're only doing for lols for 3 months, which isn't going into the core game, because
And it's how you obtain crafting. Like,
no, that's irrelevant because
where would
meta mods.
crafting come?
I was talking on my stream about how crazy it is, like the meta crafting. It's like, but you won't be able to do this next league, and it's like, what? Well, the bench won't be there, and it's like.
I think they need to do the modified version of it, making it way more challenging per upgrade. Like every single
Breachstones?
step. Yeah.
That could be a way of addressing it. I think that'd be good.
Make it like something you really have to think about.
I like the veiled idea a lot more. I still think that people, because like something like that is just an eventuality. It's so ridiculous compared to everything else that it's just going to be an eventuality as people's characters grow stronger, that this will become just another easy part of the game, and then they have to do something with it again and again and again and again. And these sort of things, I don't know. I don't think GGG is interested in like continuous balancing of the game. I don't think they've done like a genuine balance patch in a very long time. They only either make things stronger or move things around so not 90% of the community plays a single ability or something like that, or like uses the same item.
So you mean
But,
a
like, in
balance
terms of-
patch?
Does that not count?
What?
That's a fucking balance patch, dude.
That's not a. That's
Well,
not
okay,
a
guys,
balance
we
patch.
don't want
That's
like everyone just play this one build, so we're gonna change things so people play other builds. What I think you mean is they're not going for 100% balance anymore. They're just shuffling the meta. Is that
They
what you
never
mean?
were they?
I don't think that I don't think that's I don't see that as a balance patch. I see that as a meta shift.
Then what the
But it's
fuck is a
not-
balance patch?
A balance patch is something where you have a baseline of abilities that all kind of through different mechanics accomplish a similar thing. If you like
So
modify a single ability, that's just either a nerf or a buff, but it's not a balance patch. I don't think we get those anymore.
you're
Like,
saying
this
that they
goes
haven't done
to-
enough recently in touching archetypes and like in touching foundational bits of the game, and instead are messing around with certain specific numbers, just changing sliders here and there.
Yeah, basically, they're trying to keep the game fresh rather than actually like balance it around. Like if they, in my opinion, for the longest time, it's basically like if everything is broken, then nothing is broken type of mentality, and that's what they've been going for a long time. Because in the past, they would do that every league. They would be like, guys, this shit's getting out of control. Let's change this, 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 and this, and this, and then upgrade this and this and this and that. And now it's like, what's going to get changed? Arc. Why? Because 90% of the player base plays it. Okay. See you in 3 months. What does 90% of the player base play? Oh, it's Stormbrand. Okay. Let's slightly change it so that only 50% plays it. Like, I don't know. There's always going to be a strongest ability, but this isn't like a balanced patch, man.
AoE, double dipping, ES, life.
Volpax.
I mean, there's been like
Yeah, that's like 2
movement
years
skills.
ago.
Movement skills is like this is the they are continuously working on balance.
And I don't know. I would argue that some of the recent league mechanics, even if they don't directly change some of the skills and stuff,
Potions.
numbers, recent league mechanics have been pushing people into more well-rounded builds. Like you can't play Super Zoom Zoom, no
Oh
defense
yeah,
ban
no.
against
that I agree.
interventions or against like Delve and that sort of thing.
Can I
I
just
think
read you
direct
something
change,
from
for
chat,
sure.
Raiz? Have
Yeah.
you guys replaced Ryzland's mechanics to Ryzland's concepts on 2019 Baeclast?
Okay, sorry. You guys are right. The game is in the exact same state as the developers intended, and
No.
If that's the
No,
point,
like I get what you're saying, but
everything's the same balance. I'm sorry, I forgot about that.
I think they're
Right.
not designing within the same box that they initially set out to have the game be within, but they've moved to a different, possibly larger box, and they're still designing within a different space now. If that makes sense.
I think what you're trying to say is like basically they're doing stuff slightly more inadvertently now, rather than just being like very blatant. We're changing this. It's like we're gonna shift the game in a direction we like, and we'll slowly change Flame Dash. We'll slowly nerf Shield Charge, and they're guiding it slightly differently, but they're still doing balance changes.
There was a huge toss up this league. Just potions. Like all the builds, there are a lot of builds that relied on like all the whole immunity meta
The
or
max
the
res
whole
stuff,
like
you mean?
archetype is just dead. It's
Yeah.
gone.
And I've not noticed too much
They just
outcry about
killed
that,
it.
to be
They literally
honest.
just killed it.
There's been a lot of whining about the state of melee, justified or not. Not going to get into that.
Not at all, but continue.
There's been a lot of complaining, even about the like small changes. Like very recently, like the Scourge Arrow changes garnered a ton of outrage. They weren't really that bad, honestly. But the max res stuff, I've seen very little complaints about. Like it was a withered branch that they lopped off that nobody's unhappy to see gone.
Yeah, because it was like years of not doing anything with it, where it got to a point where people started creating absolutely immune characters, indestructible characters. Okay, and then finally they do something about it. Like, I don't know.
That has been the lead up with everything they've ever done. Ever. Ignite took like 3 years. Same thing with AoE and movement skills. I mean,
See, but Ignite, for instance, I disagree with completely, because with Ignite, it was like really, really powerful and really, really standing out, and they just cut it off entirely instead of having the approach that I prefer that Tarke talked about, which is the like indirect changes.
Well, yeah,
and,
but
like,
that's what they're
eventually
doing.
Things shifting around.
Like, okay, so just the new meta crafting, like that alone, has buffed the fuck out of so many builds. Instead of just saying like we have buffed this build's damage by like 100%, it's like, oh, you can now just craft these really powerful items which now enable so many builds. It's not as obvious now.
I think we're just perceiving these words differently. To me, balance is keeping things in like a straight line and not like a thing shooting up and then taking everything else that was before it, like also shooting it up. Like
We're
that's not how
power creeping
balance
every
should be.
patch. We're power
But
creeping.
don't you eventually have
that's
to
literally
change?
what they did with the potion and the defense meta, right? This
Yeah,
like, things were creeping up. We flattened everything.
But eventually, you do have to
With the f-
change like the, I don't know, the standards to which you're balancing your game, because the initial vision of Path of Exile was never going to live unchanged on for like decades.
It shouldn't have even. I mean, the game was far worse than it is now.
Can I also say one thing? Sorry, I also find it kind of ridiculous that people joke about like, oh, you know, the constant power creep is ridiculous. Our builds are so powerful. What have been the main complaints this league? That the league mechanic is too strong and too difficult. And it's like, oh, okay. So the problem is like our characters are too strong, but also that the league is too difficult. And we can't have difficult league mechanics. We just want power creep. And we need to nerf everything to be easy while also getting more powerful. Okay, cool.
I don't think people complained about things being too strong. I think people complain about things being unfair. I think there's a pretty big difference.
What the fuck does what does that mean, dude?
Well, no, I think I see what Raiz means.
Unfair is in one-shots you, then that's a big difference, right?
Yeah, okay.
The rain of arrows
hard.
that sort of thing.
Yeah. That's a really big difference. Like if somebody feels that they die unfairly on content that shouldn't have been there, like I don't know, like the Atlas game where you're running around killing level 3 mobs and then there's suddenly a level 150 turtle, like, and he just fucks you. Like that's not challenging. I mean, that's just not fair.
Just look at the cavalcade of horrible Dark Souls knockoffs that don't understand the game at all and just take an enemy and give it 1,000,000 health and 1,000,000 damage and think that's hard. Like that's
exactly
not difficulty, that's bullshit. But it's very difficult, particularly in a game like Path of Exile that doesn't have as much mechanical depth as some others that you could compare it to, like the Dark Souls comparison I made there, to come up with true difficulty. That's why I'm actually so blown away every time by like the Shaper boss fight. I think Shaper, when you're not one-shotting all of his phases, is actually one of the best designed boss fights in an ARPG, and in Path of Exile in particular. Like they did such a good job of making Shaper actually difficult if you have like 200k DPS and not 2 million, while also not being unfair.
Yeah, but that's only a matter of time because power creep. I remember when Azuri was the same thing. It was just a beautiful fight, and now it's just like Uber Azuri? What? Just one shot.
Uber Elder now.
Yeah. No, Uber Elder over the last like league and a half has been power crept on real hard.
Yeah.
Partially because players have been learning the fight better, but I think partially because of legitimate power creep.
See, but this is why I
But
really
it's still a good fight.
I really appreciate people like Mathil because of that, because I don't think that PoE is this game. I think a lot of Path of Exile is actually mechanical, a lot more than people care to admit. And the more like Mathil makes his builds over and over, and people just like make direct copies of him and aren't nearly as successful as he is, the more that highlights that there's not nearly as much emphasis nowadays on gear as there is on just like playing greedy characters that you have to play around its weaknesses. And I like that a lot more than what it was in the past, where it was like, this thing hits you for 10,000, you can't avoid it, and so you have to have 10,001 HP. And that was basically the game. While now it's like, I can gain like 200% damage, but there is a possibility that I'm going to die every now and then, so I have to play around that. And I just think that makes for a much better system. And the further the power creep goes up, the more mechanically skilled people need to be. And I think that's a good thing, if anything.
I think it's good to a point. I do think it's important to have. I think it's important that there is like actual gear checks along the way. Whereas like you can't just be a glass cannon all the way and just everything is mechanics. I think that's where you have something like very deep delves coming in. To an extent Uber Elder, but like people are finding like really good mechanically skilled players who have really mastered the fight can like take it on. I do think it's important that for the very end game content in a game that is so item driven, that you feel like you actually have to gear up your character to take on content. You can't like whenever you end up in a situation where it's such an item driven game, just becomes a cheese fest to where avoid everything kind of takes a little bit away from it, in my opinion. I think it's okay to in some fights. I mean, for the Shaper one, I don't really mind. We have plenty of other ventures right now that we can delve into, if that makes sense. But yeah.
I think that's a good thing, honestly. Like, yeah, I really like that as a concept and as a way to move forward.
Yeah. So
in terms of character development.
I don't think they're doing a bad job there. I just even like we talk about power creep all the time, but they are actually also giving us opportunities to test our characters.
Yeah, Delve is a great outlet for that.
Yeah,
like it just keeps going. Particularly now that we don't have the cheesy immunity builds, like those definitely needed to be excommunicated from the game for Delve to have legitimacy. If you've been paying attention to the Delve ladder at all, I don't know where it's at in hardcore, but in softcore, people are at like 18 or 1900, which is way earlier still than people were at this point last league. And you can arguably dig faster now, because buying scarabs and getting fuel is faster fuel generation than what we had in Delve League.
So for the longest time, there was this whole question of like, whenever GGG was talking about, hey, movement skills are broken, people would go, do not fucking touch our game. Like, don't stay the fuck away.
Like Marvel Heroes.
Yeah. Do you guys think now the game's at a point where pretty good, doesn't need to speed up anymore?
I still think they need to slow it down a little bit with like shield charge and stuff, but I feel like they're just going to keep slowly doing it over the next couple of leagues.
I mean, they're doing like for instance, the Queen of the Forest change now, where it's like 50% max. It was 100, then it was 75, now it's 50. Movement ability slightly nerfed.
I think they're actually in a good spot right now. I think the speed between achieve is okay. I mean, the only problem, or when it like takes off, is like the headhunter whole headhunter thing where it gets like completely out of control. But honestly, I think stuff like Delve is a great way to just make movement skills not important. I think it's more about creating the content within the game where the main objective is no longer to get movement speed, but to build other facets of your character and make them strong. So it's because the movement skill meta was a problem because the only thing that mattered was like strand, shield charge, go, right? That's where they like originated. And now we have like pure breachstones, which I see that as an opportunity. Delving, like uber fights, right? You'll always have you kind of have to sit and wait for like what's the guy with the gun and he follows you fun lines. Einha, right? Like there's these like small stopgaps all the time. Alva, right? You go down like, and there's like you have to like survive, and there's a lot of things to not make you. You don't need to get movement speed as much as these days as you did before, unless you're only pushing XP.
More defensive layers as well. Like red beasts are still kind of scary in higher tier maps. Intervention events can show up whenever and just murk you with it. That flag. Probably shouldn't have it in the intervention branch, but that's not really the main point.
Movement speed is still also one of the best forms of defense, though.
Yes, it's a very valuable stat. Even if we're going back, casting our mind back to the Strand meta, just the rebalancing of maps to make other maps that aren't a straight line much more attractive has also changed movement skills and shield charge. I think the game is in probably one of the healthiest states right now that it's been in ever.
Yeah, 100%.
That doesn't mean there isn't room for criticism.
No, I do think it's a mistake with having the XP, like giving players so much XP, for instance. Because I've had multiple people in chat. It was like, oh, I really wanted to like go for 100 this league, and I just feel like it means nothing right now. And you'll always you'll have these like moments whenever because the same happened with breach heads, right? The rotations. People like felt that they finally got their 100 and now they don't care about it. I know it's not a lot of people who get it even then, but it's still it's just in the back of your mind that I got something I didn't deserve.
It just feels cheap.
It's I think it's called I've brought it up in previous episodes, but it's called the biggest gun fallacy, where in a game, like if you're talking about a shooter game, which is where it's usually brought up, if you give the player in a single player RPG game like Fallout or something, a atomic bomb to use right from the get-go, they will then solve all of the problems in the game with an atomic bomb and one-shot everything. And they won't have fun and they'll stop playing. Like pure breachstones in regard to reaching level 100 are an atomic bomb. You just solve the problem of reaching level 100 by putting pure breachstones in your map device until your XP bar says 100. You won, but it wasn't fun. You didn't. It doesn't feel earned, like you said.
Yeah.
So developers have to be really careful.
It always depends on the person, but like using that as an example, like Harvey was the first time I ever went for a 100, and I didn't use beachheads on that character because it just felt cheap. So
yeah, but that's the thing. Like PoE's always been like that, where they introduce these things. Like Parandis was kind of the same example of that, except not XP, but gear-wise, where they kind of break the game for a little bit and see people's reaction as to like the direction of how far they can push the next thing. Also, I forfeit my last point. You guys are right. GGG did such a good job with indirect changes that I got exactly what I wanted without realizing it. Although, to a certain extent, I'll still say that, for instance, when it comes to certain things like Arc or Impulsa, they clearly, or KB, they clearly realize that something's standing out, but they're judging like, are people having enough fun now? Are they did they have enough fun? Now we're going to change it. Where things are broken for like 3 or 4 leagues, and then they change it based off of people just wanting something else, not because it was too powerful compared to other things.
Yeah, didn't they mention in one of the balance manifestos leading up to this league that they're aware of the fact that there's, maybe 4 to 6 skills that are like really dominating the meta going into a league, and they don't want to nerf all of them all at once and cut them all down to size, even if that would be good for like
Chris said that on Dropped Frames about Arc, because he wanted there to be familiarity for returning players, so they knew that if they I want to play PoE, I want to play the new patch, I know Arc will be good, and they always want there to be like that one solid starter build which requires very little that people can just go into and enjoy the content.
They want to leave a safe harbor for people to come back to and like not alienate a portion of their player base as a result, even if it is at the cost of not immediately balancing a corner of the game that might be out of whack.
Yeah. It's been like that for a long time, though. It's like we had it with Flame Blast totems, and there's always that one thing, and then eventually they cycle it out when something new comes in. As someone else says in chat, it's kind of like they could now kill Arc, but then leave Brands like as OP for a year, and then they would then bring Brands down, and they'd introduce something else, and it's a cycle. It's always been like that.
I don't think they're gonna kill Arc. I think that's another thing where the word balance comes in place. I think it's a buff. They're just gonna keep buffing something else until that thing gets out. Like with KB. Did KB get nerfed? Yeah. Is it still exactly the same as it was before? Yeah, it is. So, but nobody's playing it anymore, and back then everybody was playing it. So it's a matter of introducing something that overwrites the other thing. Same for Sunder. Sunder's absolutely pretty much the exact same as it was, except melee. But
we
you can
just
still do enough. Okay.
Can we just briefly
In
like
terms of
kill
early
this
leveling.
this melee is dead meme though? Because people keep saying it to me and it triggers me every fucking time. There are loads of really good melee builds right now. For the record.
Can I go on a short rant about Tech Slam?
Do it.
Because Tech Slam is really good, and it's a very powerful skill, and it's melee only in the briefest sense of the word, where like you're still hitting the other half of the screen. But it's so goddamn boring in its design, in my opinion. Like, I still stand to the points that we made in the Baeclast when Tech Slam's rework was released, because I think what I said there is that Tech Slam, because it has a chance to proc the Charge Slam, is going to do one of two things. Either it feels good when the Charge Slam happens and doesn't feel good otherwise, so the skill feels like shit to use, or it's going to feel good normally, and you don't care about the Charge Slam very much, because you're killing the screen worth of things either way, so it's superfluous, so the design is just boring. Like, I'm glad it worked out the second way, because it means we have a skill we can use rather than a piece of trash we can't, but I still don't like the design at all.
I stopped playing my Tectonic Slam character because I thought it was boring.
That's my point. Like, I don't know.
I thought it looked sick, and then I stopped because I was just like, I'm sorry, I'm bored. Like, I don't feel like playing this.
Offensively, it's not like trying to use Vigilant Strike as a main skill or something. It's a skill you can use, but there was potential there, I think, for something more interesting than what we got.
I thought it's gonna be Thunder that doesn't go poop, but it's boring.
Anyway, sorry, melee. Tarke had a point to make.
Basically, it's fine, and if you think it's not fine, you've just played a bad build, and the reason why it's obvious is spellcasters scale with very little, very easily, so if you play a really bad version of Arc Mines, you're still playing Arc Mines, so you don't notice your build is shit. If you watch, like, Don the Crown farming Uber Eld and go, oh, this seems really cool, and then you try and do, like, a one-alc version of it, and half your passives are wrong, and you go, oh, this falls off, it's because you just played a bad build. You can do very good budget melee builds. Just don't do it badly. No.
But you can't play Reeve anymore. Fuck you, Tarke. The only build was Reeve. That was the only melee build.
You can still make good Reeve builds, because you can, like, the weapons are so good now. It's like,
Yeah, multi-modding is the way of the future for attack builds and melee and all that sort of thing. Multi-modding is just the way of the future.
I wanted to talk about, how do you feel about that? Because it's basically with how multi-modding is now, it's like, it doesn't matter what build you're playing, if you have 3 exalts, that's generally like 2x of the thing, then 1x or something else, it's like, you have basically the weapon finish, which will do all the content for anything.
Multi-modding is in a bad state right now.
I don't think they'll nerf it either.
I kind of agree.
I think it's going to stick around for a long time.
It makes for it makes it hard to justify like a mid-tier item in that slot when you can get so close to having an incredibly powerful item in that slot through just multi-modding and like really reliable crafting methods. Like, why wouldn't you just do that? Like, it's because partially of the power level of like single affixes that you can find on certain shaper items and elder items. Like, it's because you can get a starting point of a bow that has like the cold projects mod and a double damage mod. Like, that's just so powerful by itself that it's a good enough weapon with some other multi-modded stuff that multi-modding is so strong. If they were to make multi-modding harder to acquire or to lower the power level of individual affixes across all elder and shaper gear, then it would solve it either way. But I think one of those is a little easier to do.
It also devalues other crafting methods, like Raiz. You trying to craft your Corsair carry bow with fossils was fucking hilarious for me, because Raiz is like, oh, let me just craft this bow real quick. The way I crafted my bow was I took like 50 alterations, a regal, a null. I finished my bow. That was it, and my bow's
but you crafted
amazing.
A shit bow. There's a big difference.
I mean,
you made a. It's like, that's like saying you should always use Jeweler's Touch because you can get a cheaper 5-link. Like that doesn't make sense.
The
possibility of
point
getting
being
a
is like
6-link
you
is
can
always
you
worth it.
as we said, you can spend like roughly 3 exalts and make something which will clear all of the content, or you can spend hundreds and then it's like, yeah, you have the perfect, but you don't realistically need it. Like,
of course.
realistically,
I mean,
do you need the +5 fossil bow? No.
Oh, you don't
Yeah.
need
That's-
any of that
It's
shit.
kind of always been the case. It's just like it's kind of always been the case that you can spend 80% of the or spend 20% of the investment to get like 80% of the power out of an item slot. But like the gap has closed a bunch more because of multi-modding. Like it just gets much closer to what a really well-crafted item could look like.
Okay. I think my bow right there. This bow right here. Okay, so I'll just like say what it is. It's a +1 to gems, 15 attack speed, 2 to supports, high chaos damage with skill effect duration, and minion attack speed. Right. If I compare this bow to my very well rolled bow last league for a similar build, I did the whole like alt regal into the vicious proc and regaling the +2, which took me like 8,000 alterations and like 100 regals. This thing right here took me like 100 alterations to then, well, it took me a little bit more because I was greedy for the attack speed roll. And then I had to hit the annul. But then you hit the attack speed roll on this thing, then you can force the +1, and then you just multi-mod everything else. You get a +3 with insane stats. This thing is like way more powerful than my previous bow, and it was like, it took me, if I had to recreate this, it would take me an hour. And I have it because you just make it on a 6-link that you buy with the porcupine card. You're done. It is like so absurd how strong it is right now.
I really want to hear Empy's opinion. We need to get Empy in here. He's in the chat. Empy, join.
Also, that my bow's on that profile there. If you want to glance at that one. But yeah.
The thing is that when it comes to multi-modding, like I never had a problem with unique items in Path of Exile. For whatever reason, it never really bothered me. It never really, the D2 itemization wasn't particularly interesting. In Diablo 2, I see rune words as a positive for the game overall. And it never bothered me. I never thought about it enough. And in a way, like multi-modding items is pretty shit because it's what unique items used to be, like this thing that you get no matter what, and it's just boring because there's very little customization because there's only one best option for the thing that you're doing, which is exactly what like a unique item build was. And it's also part of the reason why D3 fails, because it's got set items and it's these just like standard things. But then at the same time, you've got basically the talk that we had between Tarke, where Tarke made a bow. I can make a way better bow with fossils, but realistically, I don't really need it for anything because I've already got enough juice from all these other sources. So I think multi-modding would be fine if like the fossil crafting would actually feel as rewarding because you would need it to engage with like more difficult content. But realistically, you don't need it for like 99% of the game. Yeah, except like Delve. Delve is a great thing.
Delve could be that 1%.
Delve kind of failed, like in what it wanted to accomplish.
I think for a lot of builds, it's almost impossible. Like, I mean, you're talking the only thing that beats the these weapons are like close to mirror tier like weapons. It's like the opportunity cost is so absurd. The difference. Right?
There's the bow I crafted for my build. There's a prismatic fossil mod that you can get that's up to 120% increased elemental damage. And I rolled fossils until I hit that with double damage and annulled down to those. And then multi-modding off of that makes like a bow that can only be beaten by like a literal mirror tier bow, pretty much. You know, because you can get pen, non-cast as extra chaos, and local crit as all multi-modded options.
Okay, but do you feel, for instance, because fossils are pretty much the best way to make like the best gear in the entire game right now, you guys feel like fossils are really overpriced right now then?
No.
If that were to be the case? Because I feel like if the difference is really that small between a multi-modded bow and then like a mirror tier bow, then fossils should just be cheaper.
Well,
but
it comes down to
they seem pretty expensive.
It depends on the economy, though. You're in hardcore, and he'll be in softcore.
No, even on softcore, right? It's like hella expensive.
And then fossils are relatively pricey. Like metallics are still at like 6 or 7 C each and stuff. But I think it comes down to the power, like I mentioned earlier, of certain individual affixes making up like half the worth of an item. Like on my bow, I really, really care about that 120% LE damage roll. And that's a fossil specific mod, like that's from Prismatics. Like that is so powerful by itself that plus one other mod is enough to then throw a bunch of crafted mods at it and call it a day, and it makes a powerful enough bow to be worth using. If like power were spread out a little more evenly between some of the other affixes, it might be more worthwhile, but then you lose the value of like making a really GG bow, you know? Like you lose the value of hitting that one mod that's so cool and strong.
I think also MP like put it really well in chat, and it's also what we were talking about earlier. It's the fact that, hey guys, let's craft. BRB buying fossils and essences for 2 hours to click 20 times. Whereas it's like with multi-modding, it's like you buy the alterations once, and it's like you feel like you made it, and you can realistically sit down in a session, and it's actually, it's also fun to make it, and it's straightforward. It's not like hours upon, you know, hours scrolling through AFK, blah, blah, blah.
I just wonder which items this truly applies to, because yesterday I hosted MP and he was like scouring 800 ES chess pieces with like Shaper energy shield gain and shit, and he was like not looking to make money. Obviously, he was just like trying to mess around, make like a really GG chess piece. But then like at the same time, you can't multi-craft a chess piece like that at all. Like you just can't. You can't multi-craft an 800 ES chess piece like that.
But this is not where the multi-modding is too powerful.
Yeah.
I mean, you've always been able to multi-mod a chess piece, whatever. It's more specific to say weapons, right? You're also before you said like, why are fossils not? Why are they not cheaper? Well, it's because they're multi-purpose, right? The metallic ones, even if you would use it on a bow to make the perfect one, would still be used for the minus lightning res on the helmet. And people spam those and spam those and spam those. So you go through many iterations on, it's like, it's really, there is like a floor to where what is it used on the most, and that's kind of like what determines the price.
Yeah, I totally agree. But prices that was the case also last league, and prices were lower, right?
But there was more access to them last league. And, like, because this is also the thing as well, right? And also, I'm adding MP to the call, so this is going to be fun.
Actually, was there more? Maybe Octavian can get the same amount of fossils.
Way more last league. What?
There's the whole, like, iceberg effect of having the larger player base have more access to the mechanic. Like, yeah, someone who's really buying Delve Scarabs all the time and running nothing but Delve 24/7 is going to get more fossils this league than they would last league, but that's not the majority of the player base.
Right. I need to fix everyone's cams. MP, you don't have a cam. Hello, MP.
Hello. Is that okay, or do I need to?
No, you're fine.
Overtaking the podcast.
Yeah.
No, I was like, this topic was like.
Okay, can I lead in with a question?
Yeah,
okay. Do you think it's? Do we think that pretty much like the multi-modding, like we're specifically talking about two-handers, I think here with staffs and bows, that with 4 mods that they're as powerful as pretty much the perfect mod that you can get on an item, because they really are as powerful as all the other mods that you can alter a vehicle for.
Yeah.
What do you think about that? What do you
I think that's a problem. I think the problem this league with the multi-modding is that the slots where you use a multi-mod stuff, you can get a really good item for, you know, you can either craft it yourself for like 5 to 10x, or you can buy one for 15 to 20x, and you're done. That slot is done. Like upgrading from that item to a mirror item is like a 5% upgrade or 10% upgrade, and people are not gonna play 150x for a 10% upgrade, right? And so
I feel like we need to specify though. Because you keep saying item, but like, do you mean weapons? Do you mean chess pieces?
Yeah, weapons mostly. Weapons. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So those good multi-mod weapons. Like I'm sure you've got people coming to your stream and you're like, oh, can you multi-mod this for me? And they just trade you like a 1 stat, like a good fist base or a good scepter with a gain mod or whatever, and then they just like that's their weapon and that's it. They're done. I don't know if you play SSM this league. I'm sorry.
I'm always like, no, I don't have any craft.
Yeah. Okay, but this happens. Like this happens. I'm not a crafter, and this happens to me a lot. So it's like, yeah, I'm sure it happens more to actual crafters.
Do you think part of the reason why such powerful crafted mods were added into the game, along with the ease of accessibility to multi-mod, is to try and make up for some of the lost power, particularly on like Fizz gained his extra effects and for stat sticking for melee, to
Yeah,
make it
it's
easier to
possible.
get a good Fizz form, that kind of thing?
Yeah. I think that's part of it for sure. I just feel like they went kind of, I don't want to say overboard, because I mean it's still kind of expensive, like for the average player, like those like 2x craft, 1x craft, those are that's still a big investment, but it's nothing to like, all right, I have found a mirror, or I have found something crazy. I've been grinding my ass off for the last 2 weeks, and I'm gonna get a mirror item now. I have the money. I'm gonna find the best mirror item out there, and I'm gonna mirror it, and I have a mirror item, and that's so cool. And that's a next to Headhunter, that's for a lot of people, that's a chase thing. Like that's what they go for. They farm enough, and then they like juice out the character like crazy. And this league, it's like you can't really do that, because you can just buy a multi-modded one for 20x, and that's your item, right? Or that's your weapon, or whatever they buy. And that's
Okay,
kinda sucks.
but then how about a different perspective? Because I think multi-modding works. It just doesn't work on weapons. And I was never a person that was like,
Oh.
again, big on itemization. So like, how about the perspective of like the other positives, like people spending 3 exalted orbs on a ring, for instance, that's multi-modded, which I feel like didn't happen previously for the average player, and now it does. Did those like positives make up for the negatives that you get through a weapon craft, or should it be just
Yeah.
nerfed across the board?
Yeah, maybe it's just weapons that it's an issue with there. But yeah, those rings are really cool. I think like, yeah, when someone trades me like a Warlord's Mark, I don't know, like all res base ring, and it's like, oh shit, this is gonna be a really nice ring, good shit. But like when I see a weapon, it's like, yeah, maybe it's just weapons. I don't know.
And there is the positive that it's a outlet for exalts, which has kept exalts very expensive this league.
Mm-hmm.
So it's always good to have a currency sink, I think.
Yeah, it has
Doing
like a
more of this,
weird,
but-
like a roll down effect, right? Like mirrors being quote unquote cheap compared to other leagues, but exalts are more expensive, and then yeah, like people are using them way more, which is nice. Especially now that more of these flat currency maps became meta because of that. This league, I think, Arsenal, Precinct, even Ghetto, Arcade, like all that stuff that drops like pure exalt cards, chaos cards, and stuff. It just gave room to those maps like being farmed instead of, I don't know, like Boreal spamming all day or whatever. So that's good.
Okay, but do we find multi-modding boring then, in terms of from like an itemization point of view overall? Is it just like a thing where
No.
like, oh, just nerf weapon
I guess it's a
mods and
trade-off.
that's it?
Yeah, something with the weapons. Yeah.
I think it's important that whenever they introduce, like, if they want multi-modding to be a thing, they have to look into from a balance perspective. Okay, what is the most powerful multi-modded item we can create in each slot, and how far into the like how powerful do we want it to be compared to other upgrade paths? Because it's so easy. Once you have like, it's so easy to just finish a slot. There should always be from multi-modding, there should always be a logical next step. Or not always, but
Yeah, I agree.
in most
If you want to juice up your
cases,
character,
there
yeah,
should be an upgrade path that you would be looking for. And
Yeah.
not having that removes like part of the progression that a player would have with a character, since items really are what we're progressing after a certain point.
Yeah, I think that definitely.
I think that's why weapons are so bad, and I think weapons is one of the more exciting things that players craft on, because it gives you
Exactly.
all the power. So that's why you don't want to take that experience away.
Yeah.
They're also one of the more difficult things to craft because there's so many
Yeah.
junk rolls you can hit.
Mm-hmm.
Wait, I just realized that it's like Diablo 3, right? Like weapons and everything being based off the weapon and everything is just such a boring slot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And yeah, that just sucks.
Yep.
To fix it, then would they just need to tone back the power of the crafted rolls,
Yes.
or make multi-mod somehow harder to acquire?
Yeah. I don't know, because this is always hard from a design perspective, right? Because you don't want to add arbitrary rolls to your game that are not intuitive to understand. Right? You don't, like, you could make it so that multi-modding takes up 2 slots on a weapon, like both a prefix and a sub. But that would really suck, right? Like that's like,
Because then you have to annul it.
Yeah.
Kill it.
Yes. And then you can craft meter items.
Yeah.
I mean, I think like the spell damage gain whatever thing could be toned down, but like it gives you up to what, like 10% gain, or no, wait, what is it on this?
Yeah, I guess you could just tone
I
down
don't know.
the
You tone down that a little bit.
Yeah.
It just needs that needs to be just a better roll you can get. The fact that like even hitting like the T1 gain Ellie as chaos is actually weaker sometimes on weapons than just a crafted roll. The +2 to support should be +1. The +2 should not exist. I mean, there's just a few things that are just way too powerful for just be able to like freely be crafted on there.
I think also the problem you have with that though, and this is why it's awkward, is they clearly designed the system around players like fixing gear. Like they want people to pick up an item and be like, oh, if I add this one thing, this is good. They didn't build it around multi-modding. So they don't necessarily want to make like the crafted rolls weak in comparison to what can naturally drop. Because if they like nerf the spell damage as anything, then it removes the case of the player who's like new guy in maps, a dagger drops, he adds the thing, sick, this dagger will carry me for a couple more levels. I think maybe one of the more interesting ways they could change it would be to maybe look at something like annuls, or have it so that you can't make like one stat rares, maybe it goes back down to a blue or something.
I like those though. I think those are interesting.
Yeah.
And if it goes back down to a blue item, that's got implications elsewhere in the game where you would then be able to re-regal something, which is a lot cheaper than Exalt.
Yeah.
Or Beastcraft imprinted and try again.
That as well.
Yeah.
Like that has some significant knock-on effects to other portions of crafting.
Okay, then.
How about making the best rolls in the games be more like Bestiary, but tie them into Katarina, so you have to farm them off first. Since these are the powerful ones are like Veil mods anyway, so you'd have to like find the Veil mod and then lock it and then use it.
Don't we have everything unlocked once we have it? Like once you've unlocked it, it's unlocked
we do
forever.
Now. Well, why not have the most rare ones require like
So having crafts be consumable.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean?
Okay.
That makes more opportunity cost to creating a meta crafted item. So like
you can still make the meta crafted item multi-mod,
spell damage gained as chaos would use up your ability to craft that. If you were to craft it onto something, you'd have to go find it again.
So
if
then
they
it
made
would
that
also
for like,
be like
only the top tier of crafts, that could be a limiting factor that adds
only
more
the
value
top
to
tier.
multi-modded.
We're going super Diablo then, because then we're getting like legendary crafting materials and shit.
Yeah, it's basically crafting materials.
Yeah.
Turning
it into a crafting material itself.
I mean, Exalt is a crafting material already. I mean, let's be real here. It's just that's how you get in your inventory. I put it on. Done.
The thing, like, I think people are like sometimes too afraid when GGG does stuff that is kind of similar to Diablo 3. But Diablo 3 did some things right. It's just all the power creep and all the simplicity of their item system is just clouding everything. And it's like, oh, they brought in legendary beams. Now it's like the game is the same as that's a good thing. Like that's a very nice quality of life effect, like buff for everyone. Like you can see good loot in the map and you can see it on your screen with beams. Like that's a good thing. And there is, I'm sure, some stuff with the Diablo crafting system that, you know, like the big 1 out of 3 options. That's a good thing. That could be introduced for enchantments too, and I'm sure people would love that. And they wouldn't be like, oh no, this is now Diablo 3. You know, like there are some good stuff there.
If they try to rebalance multi-modding by just increasing the cost, at what cost would it become fair in your minds?
That would be really difficult to do and leave set, because values of various currencies obviously change league by league, but also as new crafting methods come into play, that could potentially make crafting an item the, so to speak, old-fashioned way easier, or even harder if crafting methods leave play. Then the cost of multi-modding would have to change to account for that, right? Or else it's going to end up being too expensive and no one would want to do it ever, or it's going to end up being too cheap and we'll have the same problem we do now. So I don't think there's like a set number of exalts that multi-modding can be put at that would just solve the problem.
Yeah,
like
I don't think tinkering the cost is not. Yeah, like if you make it too expensive, you punish the new players, and if you make it too cheap, then it's even worse than it is.
I don't know. I think
But
the
the values,
simplest thing they could try to do first is just tone back some of the numbers on crafted
Yeah.
rolls.
exactly.
I
think
don't think
easy.
that would be a terrible thing. Like, you can get 16% pen as a craft on weapons. That's just kind of ridiculous, right? That's half of the pen that you get from the all pen link in like a shroud or something. It's a lot.
Have you guys run into a problem? I guess this would be specific to softcore, or not necessarily, but to a problem where you would find an item that previously, like let's say a pair of gloves, would be worth 3 exalted orbs, and now you find a pair of gloves that's worth 4, but you're going to be pricing it at 3, or maybe it was even 5, and you're going to be pricing it at 3 because nobody's going to pay more for like a little bit more stats, even though they would be 4, because now you can just multi-craft a very similar pair that's slightly worse, like where that cap is for items, where people just aren't willing to buy the better ones unless they're drastically better than the multi-modded version.
Yeah, I mean that's kind of the problem of multi-modding at its core. That's a problem for the person trying to sell the gloves, but it's kind of also a problem for the person who's looking to buy an upgrade because nothing really feels worth it anymore at that point. Like it's sort of what we've been talking in circles around this whole time.
What do you guys think of the suggestion in chat about having it so multi-mod comes with like other crafted mods are less effective or something?
What do you mean?
So when you multi-mod came with the tag other crafted mods are less effective, like 20% or 30%.
Oh.
How do you make +2 less effective?
That I was gonna say, what about +1 curse chest or something? Yeah.
I mean,
yeah.
You can put 0.8 hookers.
That would work in a world where it was only 20% chaos damage or something. Multi-modding options, but there's some binary stuff.
Yeah.
Wouldn't that essentially make it multi-modding from last league though? Like where you can do it and it costs the same amount, but they're just not good enough to bother.
And the
especially with a 2x initial cost.
Yeah.
Like I feel like multi-modding is really like a black or white thing. Like it's either very strong or just way too weak to ever bother because of the initial cost.
Is there maybe an argument then that multi-modding isn't healthy and just shouldn't exist?
I think as long as you add the opportunity cost to it, right? Like there is a to get to the final stage, there is something you have to do to get there other than just the multi-mod. It's just there's not enough on our opportunity cost there. It's too simple, it's too easy.
Just a null slam. Once you're done.
Wait, what did you say, MP?
Just a null and then slam. That's the final stage of a good
it's the final. I've been thinking about doing that.
Or you'd like slap an aspect of it on it.
Oh, yeah. Oh, that's true. That's easy.
Yeah, that's pretty easy. Costly though. But it's I mean that's the right way to do it, I think. Sure.
Yeah.
Except you're saving yourself one suffix. You're spending like, well, if your item costs like 3x, and then on average you're gonna be doing the annul like 5 times. That's like a 15x item to save one suffix as opposite to a 3x item. Like, I don't know. That's some big dick stuff.
See, I think I like the suggestion of tie it to some kind of, you said Katarina item, but the thing is how regularly is the average player multi-modding an item? For someone like Empy, it would be a big deal that suddenly needs to gather all of these materials. But for me, for example, with my build, all I'd have to do is, like, however many katas, okay, my bow is finished, because I'm playing course to carry, 90% of my character is just the bow, and that's it, it's done.
The thing is, this is only an argument for SSF, though, right? Because at any point, any player has the materials, is like, all right, I have what I need, let's go on Twitch, find a streamer that has the multi-mod, hey, can you do a multi-mod? Yeah, sure, and then that's like...
I mean, you could say the same thing for the mirror, right? If you have enough currency, that logic still applies. You can have anything.
Yeah, but the problem is that the difference between a mirror item and a good multi-craft is not big enough to warrant the mirror upgrade.
This could actually be used to sort of kill two birds with one stone, because I right now feel like, this is a little bit of an aside, but I feel like the mastermind fight is not nearly rewarding enough for how much it punishes you by resetting your chart and like unlocking safe houses you don't want locked and bringing people on that you don't want on your chart. If they could put a bench after the Katarina fight that allows you to like choose some of the stronger crafting options like multi-mod and prefixes or suffixes can't be changed and use them there. Well, maybe just multi-mod, because things like prefixes or suffixes can't be changed need to be used in succession many times to like do meta crafting for mirror items, and that would be really annoying if it was locked behind the boss fight. But something like multi-mod that you're only going to do once on the item and then move forwards with it could be a reward for a Katarina fight.
It's kind of what Bestiary is, and I like that, to be honest. Getting things behind content.
Yeah.
Especially
Making them SSF even in Trade League, in a way.
The problem you have with that then is, and you see this currently with Bestiary though, it's just like, oh, I've got the boss, let me just TP 6 randoms in, and you just have the same thing with Katarina. Right, I've done it, let me just TP 6 people in. And that's pretty obnoxious.
Yeah, but I don't... Do you think that should work like that? I don't think that system should work like that in general. Like, it's pretty weird that... Like, especially... Maybe it worked like that, it made sense before we were able to trade beasts, but now that we can trade beasts, I don't think 6 people should be able to get the craft off of one portal.
Yeah, and I mean, if you make it a bench... If you make it a crafting bench after the fight and not
then,
a
yeah,
beast
either
that you
make it
capture,
and use it. Yeah.
then only the owner of the Katarina fight would be able to use the bench. I don't know. I mean, it still doesn't quite solve the problem that multi-modded items are so close in power level to like a comparative almost mirror tier item, but it does make them less available and more of a investment into your character.
I think really it's just, do we think that we would lose anything if they just got rid of multi-modding? Because it seems like whatever way we spin this, it's still kind of fucky.
Maybe multi-modding is just a problem.
Over the course of this discussion,
I really do like the veiling version. Like the veil stuff was like kind of cool.
But like, what do we actually
mod?
gain from multi-modding?
This could be another like arbitrary rule, which is not really good, but like maybe it could be for only jewelry or something like that, like only for a category of items, like rings, amulets could be cool.
I mean, there's crafted mods that are arbitrary to certain base to begin with.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So there's precedent for that. I don't know. The more we talk it over, the more I'm convinced that like the game wouldn't be that much worse off without multi-modding, especially with how many targeted crafted methods we have now. I think multi-modding made a lot more sense in an environment without fossils, and an environment without essences, and an environment without
shaper items,
and without like super powerful crafting options off the bench. And now it's a problem more than anything else. Like it's not offering as much to the game as it's taking away from it.
I think it's an experiment, you know, because the player base and GGG have been pushing for such a long time to have this like no character is the same. You have high customization on your items. You can use Elder, Shaper items. You don't have to be locked down to uniques that are stronger than any rare. That to now go from like that sort of idea into you always craft the same thing, just kind of weird. So in a way, it feels like just a very drastic experiment, and I don't know if it's gonna stick. But at the same time, like veiled mods are, I don't know. We haven't really talked about veiled mods really at all. Like if we like the concept or not.
We touched on it a little bit on the last Baeclast. I still hate the fact that with veiled mods, I have 95% of them. I can't easily see which ones I'm missing, so I'm still just doing this stupid extra step before I vendor items.
It's really annoying.
Yeah. I think I'm missing like a couple of rank ups on some rare like quiver slots, because quivers don't drop that often, and maybe like rings. And I haven't got the totem shield. I think that's it.
I think the only way to get veiled mods on quivers is by adding them with hashling. I don't think quivers drop with veiled mods.
Oh, okay then. Right, well, then I'm just missing +1 totem shield then.
And there's some powerful stuff. I think there's like frenzy charge gen on crit or something. Like there's frenzy charge gen that isn't tied to on kill that you can get on quivers. So like using
Oh.
Ashling's Bench to add veiled mods to quivers is actually a pretty good idea because you can unveil those.
Huh. I like that.
There's a really good, I don't know if it comes from, I think it might be fossils, but there's something you can do to quivers where you get a chance to get a frenzy charge on hit against uniques and rares. That's really strong.
Aren't you guys talking about the same thing?
Maybe, I don't think. There's frenzy shot on quivers is good, basically, but yeah, I don't know. What do you think about veiled mods?
I think
I
it's
don't like
really...
unveiling them.
Yeah, I don't like unveiling them either.
I really liked unveiling them at the start, and I think that's the problem with the system. Like,
Yeah, same actually. At the
they
start.
they don't want to give you a list of all the mods you can possibly unveil right away from the start, because that removes the aspect of the game that's really fun for a lot of people who are never going to get to where we're at, where we've unveiled like almost everything, of discovery, of like clicking unveil and seeing, oh shit, you can craft like minimum frenzy charges on a ring. That's so cool. Like, you wouldn't really discover that naturally during gameplay if you just had a list of all of them that you could open at any point and you could just peruse through those. So GG doesn't want to give people that. But if you don't give people that, then people don't know how many they still have left to unveil when they're at the very end and they just haven't gotten the last few rare ones, and it feels like you're constantly bobbing for apples in a freaking like ocean with a single apple in it.
I think there's a huge problem with the fact that veiled mods take up the slots of regular mods.
You mentioned this in the last Baeclast.
Yeah, because
Yeah,
it
it
means that
annoys
most
me to
rares
no
are
end.
just weaker and stuff.
Okay, think about this. You get Ashling with double unveil, right? Then you get a 2-stat item. I mean, what the fuck? I mean, serious. There's like no chance that item will ever be good.
Yeah.
It's impossible. Wait, it's not
There's
impossible, but
breach rings.
it's just...
I think the reason there's not more outrage about that is because people just don't expect their rare items to be anymore. Like, rare items that drop on the ground being good is a goddamn novel concept. And
Yeah, but you're
people
forced to
just-
picking them up and IDing them. That's the
Yeah,
problem.
Just
No, I
don't
agree
really
with
get
you
the system
that-
at all.
I agree with you. It's a bit annoying,
Oh.
but that's probably why there hasn't been too much discussion on it, or Reddit posts or anything like that.
One thing I can say in defense of multi-mods, and MP's not going to be able to relate to this at all, because of how strong multi-modding has made alterations, I look forward to filling up my inventory with random rares to vendor for alts.
Nice.
MP, you'll really
rolling.
like this. The amount of Zana missions
I love
I
it.
have ripped because I'm like, oh, full inventory. Let me just teleport real quick to empty my. Fuck, that was a Zana. No. Ah, it's terrible. Yeah.
Oh no.
I do that at least once, maybe twice
You
every
know,
stream.
Tarke, you can go back and forth from your cart to Nico as many times as you want.
I know. I
when you run
just
a
delve. Yeah.
Delve
Run
is
back and
so
forth.
good.
Picking up all the loot.
Oh, alterations.
Delve is actually the
days.
best content. I agree. Like someone said it earlier before I was here. Like Delve is actually the best content. Like added to the game. It adds so much like different types of things you can do depending on what delve you depth at and like what way you go, I guess, and what nodes you pick, or if you discover the sides or not. Like,
And it provides an outlet for even the problem we're talking about now, where like multi-mods are so very close in power to the highest tier of items, because it is a reason to go for that last like 5 or 8% power increase if you need to push another 100 floors in delve, and that's what would get you there. But that's not really a situation that's common to the majority of the player base, I'd say.
I think time spent and in resources investment into that line, though, within a 3-month league is completely wasted if you actually want to delve deeper. I do not think that is where you want to invest your time, going beyond the multi-modded item at that point. It is
Likely
so
not.
rare that it's actually going to be worth your time investment. So I think it's not really the outlet for that. Even though we would want it to be, I don't think it's like the league would have to be way longer for that to be the case.
Or you're playing a very specific kind of build, which really got
Yeah, I mean
insane.
there are definitely yeah.
But yeah, for the vast, like even for someone like MP, who's
Yeah.
like, let's go full, potato mode min max. If you were like, what build are you currently playing, MP? Flicker Strike or something?
Flicker Strike, yeah.
Yeah. So if you just did like perfect multi mod every slot would you really feel the need to chase the mirror gear?
I can't because this build has like 10 uniques in it.
Well, there you go, man.
But my claw is already legacy because like I made this, or I started playing this build, and then I bought this claw from PoE Trade for like 7.5x, and the next day they removed that craft. They made it so that you can't have flat fizz and bleed hybrid. So my claw is like a 450 DPS claw with
Oh, the double unveil?
Yeah, no, not unveil.
Oh.
It was the stacked fizz thing people were doing at the
Oh,
very
yeah.
it was like the first
Okay.
week or something.
I'm sure you've seen the Reddit post where people
Oh,
were
where everyone made
mad
it
about
this-
that one guy because he was only crafting
Yeah.
these types of swords for like 2 weeks, and then they patched it, and he has like 20, and it was price fixing them and everything. So people were like
I
really mad.
remember.
I have that claw for this build, so I don't need upgrading right now. For me, it's just like going for double corruption. So I'm like farming temples to try to get like a double corrupted lore weave and things like that. Yeah.
I wanted to ask about that earlier. How do you guys feel about making legacy items mid-league?
That's weird. I don't think they should do that.
Don't like it at all. But this
Like if something is so bad that they don't agree that it shouldn't exist, then they have to delete all of them or
Yes.
leave it in for the league and say, okay, well, kind of
Yep.
fucked up or whatever, but this is the league
What?
now. Have fun.
How do
I
you
don't
You
think
think
that
it would be better to delete them?
Yes.
Yeah, if they think they shouldn't be in the game, which they do because they stopped allowing you to make them, then they shouldn't be in the game.
What? That would kill people. Why
Yeah,
people
but
invest
then-
their money
then
and everything?
I don't think that's the way they should do. I think that's one of the ways. I think they should leave them in and call it a league, right? This is how this league is. Like I don't think there's a middle way, and then what they did is a middle way, and I don't know. I think either of the other options are better.
Because the main thing with that, if you have it just in for the league, is you're like, oh, but what about standard? The fact these items even exist kind of like fucks standard.
And then they'll go to standard where everything is super fucked anyway because like crazy items exist, and
Well,
then
nobody plays
next
the
league
game.
it won't be in the game.
Also,
Well, people collect stuff. Yeah.
can I just say respect for anyone who has the balls to try and like craft or maintain mirror weapons in standard? Because every patch your mirror weapons is dog shit, man.
Exactly.
Every single league, it's like, oh, look at my mirror crafts are worthless.
But then
Well,
again, you never know when you bring up some crazy shit from a league, and then you use that method to craft it, and then that method is gone next league, and then now you have something that will never ever be able to be made again, and you can make bank on it. Or...
I mean, it keeps it exciting in standard, right? That there's always meta shit. No, like, is that really that bad? I mean,
is that why people play standard for the excitement?
But
There's all these fucking adrenaline junkies.
You know what the biggest excitement in standard is, and when someone logs in with the item that you want to buy and has been offline for like 5 months. That's the excitement of standard.
Either that or reading the patch notes and then frantically
Yeah.
trying to make the best out of it. I don't know. I don't think they care much about standard anymore. They say they care, but they also said they care about racing. So I don't know. I don't believe them anymore.
Like, feel the
Like,
pain
what the
behind
hell?
that one, right?
Yeah, I'm never gonna forget it. I don't know. I think that covers it, right?
I think we talked about everything. MP, was there anything that you disagreed with when you were watching us?
I only listened to like half of it. Not really, honestly.
See, what you should have just said is no, everything was perfect. Oh, actually, since we have you here, and Octavian also, he likes to actually play content. The Zana mods. People keep asking me about Zana mods this league. What do people think about the Zana stuff?
I wish Beyond was on.
Exactly.
Like XP.
I wish. Not even XP, it's just for fun. Even if you don't have a headhunter, you just get 1 or 2 inspired learnings. Beyond makes maps so much more fun for everyone, and anyone who plays the game for like a week can get an inspired learning or 2, and that's just fun. I don't know. Sucks that it isn't there. I don't mind that the quantity stuff is gone because there's other stuff like there's scarabs, but I feel like the negative reaction to scarabs wasn't as strong as I expected it to be. Like people hated league stones because they had to play around with them on top of like sextanting and already rolling their maps and stuff. But now there's scarabs, and you have to do it for every map, and people are like happy about it. So it's kind of weird. But
no, well, you think okay? So you have to do it for every map.
No.
technically.
A lot of people
but,
play the
okay.
game I know what you mean. Not everybody plays like this, but a lot of people who
No, but
like
not
to
even
farm,
that.
they feel like they have to
Okay.
do max investment every map, and then
Okay.
it's really annoying to buy Scarab.
You do not have a full inventory riddled with scarabs from just playing a map, right? It doesn't
Yeah.
drop in the map. You're not like presented with the I have to put my because you have like an inventory of breachstones. That's why it sucked. You always had to like manage this
Yeah, but
thing.
most of those were
Now you
shit.
don't-
Like you just wanted like the 4 or 5 really
It
good
doesn't
ones,
matter.
right?
The majority of players, they don't know what they're missing out of, so they don't care. They're ignorant
Okay.
to it. That's why it doesn't matter.
Okay, that's true. Actually, you're right.
Yeah,
On
it's
the
the
majority
scar-
of players don't play like that. Maybe.
And
Yeah.
the scarcity helps push them into a place where they feel more like a treat, I guess, that you get to throw in with your map and like do every now and again.
With your
Like,
best
yeah, this is a
maps.
well-rolled map. I'm gonna
Yeah,
throw a
sure.
gilded Cardo Scarab in there too with my 110 quant map or whatever, and get more maps back. And it feels like you're running more high-end content. I don't know. I think Nugi's right. For the majority of players, it's
Yeah,
not.
I agree that the
burden.
majority of players, don't play like that.
But isn't it a matter of time? It was the same with Sextons. The majority didn't play like that, and eventually a system that just went for full optimization caught up, and then people were overwhelmed by it. Same for MFing.
Sure.
It's not like anything changed. It just grew into a problem.
Well, that depends. Yeah, how many players like go for it. Like when does it become the standard, right? Like you said with Sextons, or first people just whatever, all can go, okay, can't sustain, okay, Chisel all can go, okay, can't sustain still, but a bit better, okay, Sextant and Chisel and go, okay, this is starting to work, and then there's more layers to add to that still.
I
like
think
the
we've
Zala
reached a
mods,
point
like
now, though, where there's enough layers of investment you can make fairly easily with a lot less time investment than buying scarabs. Like you can buy chisels and sextants and bulk and stuff, and enough auxiliary content, whatever you're mapping between like temples and delve and safe houses, that you don't feel obliged to buy scarabs just to be able to keep sustaining and running high tier maps.
Yeah, I
Like,
agree. The auxiliary content helps sustain like Raiz, like the temples, the delves. Yeah, like you said, if you're delving at the depth where your appropriate maps drop, then yeah.
So yeah, if you're not like worried about making the absolute most money and you're just interested in making a profit while sustaining the content you're doing, you do actually have a lot of options and ways you can approach
this
that.
league is the best by far for that.
Yeah. I mean, it's just the best league, right?
I think so. Yeah.
It's a little
There's
unfair.
so much to do.
So many leagues at once.
Yeah, exactly.
But that was like people say that a lot.
Well,
Like
that's the point, right?
that was the whole goal of it. It's like people have said to me, like Tarke. It always reminds me of like the Life of Brian sketch. Like, what did the Romans do for us if we ignore everything? But it's like, what did Betrayal really do? Ignore invasion, ignore Bestiary, ignore Delve. Even though this was all planned as a massive 4-parter to be combined as one, if you ignore all the things that I like, you know, what did Betrayal really add to the game? Also ignoring the crafting, because I like those two. It's like, oh.
Well, you can't ignore that when you're talking about Bestiary, when you're talking about Syndicate, because that's the appeal of the league, right?
It's a good league.
Say it,
In
Tarke.
conclusion, I think it's good. Best might be a stretch. You know, old Bestiary. I hold a torch for that. No, I'm just kidding.
Okay.
I'm just kidding. Betrayal's been really good.
Okay. As the second best league after Bestiary, I think I'd like to thank Empy for jumping on last second as a last-minute guest, and I think we are all wrapped up. So yes.
Maybe actually give a proper shout out since there's no overlay or anything. Just
Right,
so
okay, fair. So if you're wondering who the disembodied voice is, that was not Nugiyen's mum. She was the disembodied banging in the background.
Hey.
Banging. Hello.
She's trying to be very quiet.
I appreciate her. Empyrean, where can
Good.
people find your voice and potentially face?
Oh, Empyrean Gaming everywhere. Twitch, YouTube, Twitter, I guess.
And Nugi, if you want to hear more from your mum, where can they find her?
What?
Oh.
No.
What's your Twitch?
No.
Nugi?
You can find me at twitch.tv/Nugiyen. And Nugiyen everything on Google, and it pops up.
And Octavian, I'm guessing we can find you with Octavian0.
Octavian0, yeah.
And Raiz, can we find you by googling Raiz?
No, you can find me by googling RaizQT. Because if you Google Raiz, I think it shows like it means like root in Spanish or something. So you're probably not gonna find anything. It has to be tied to PoE.
Okay.
Or gotta add the QT. Feels bad, man. Bad marketing.
And if
the
you
root of the
Google,
problem.
But everybody knows you're QT now. So.
Hey.
Easy.
The double zinger. Nice, guys.
okay. And
Would you
on that,
consider changing name to Raizian?
Ryzian?
Yeah.
PC. I was thinking about changing it to PC Rise.
Oh, even
That
better.
would be better. Yeah.
and on that, we're finished. I'm gonna play the fancy intro again. I'm Tarke. Have a good day. Bye.
This is supposed to be an outro, Tarke.
Fuck off! Look, you've ruined the. Look, we're just talking over the
Nice
fancy graphics
outro,
now.
dude.
Nice outro, guys.